as a kid. You're now rocking with Uncle D. Hit subscribe. Subscribe to my guy, Uncle D. Tell him Big Bass sent you.
Spurling. I'm an attorney here in Houston, Texas, an advocate for black men, largely because I am a black man. I'm a black father, I have black sons. Hey man, I do what I do. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the broadcast. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Big up to Mr. 43TX. Always good to see you in here, brother. Been here for a long time. I appreciate you. Always good to see you, man. Who else we got? Unbiased Ron. Make sure you guys join the membership if you haven't already. I want to make sure I acknowledge everybody in the chat room. But look, the saga continues. We are still talking about the Carmelo Anthony debate or Carmelo Anthony case. People just think it's unfair. And so recently on The View, they discussed Carmelo Anthony. And my issue is that they forced into they forced this thing into a racial box. Okay. But I guess before we get started, I just want to thank everybody. Again, my name is Dennis Spurling. I'm an attorney by practice. And, I don't really necessarily do that here. I like to talk about history and all sorts of other things. But for the most part, this is what I've been called to do through no choice of my own. Shout out to Willie D. But the comment section is killing me, and so I've kind of had to deal with it. But again, The View decided to pick this up. And they forced it into a racial injustice box, even though a jury heard the evidence. They rejected self-defense, and now people can disagree with the sentence and say they believe the appeal should be pursued. But what you can't do is act like the trial didn't happen or that there is no dead child, i.e. Austin Metcalf. And see, there are people who benefit from keeping racial distrust alive. They keep eyes watching. They keep hate going. They keep people divided. They keep people angry. And some of them aren't really that talented. Hashtag The View. Somebody type hashtag The View in the chat room. They don't have deep analysis. They don't have real solutions. They don't have anything productive to offer to the conversation. And they find a tragic case like this. They strip out the parts that don't fit the argument that they want to push. They highlight the parts that do. And then they serve it to the public like they've uncovered some great injustice. Now, historically, Black people should understand injustice better than anybody else. We know what happens when facts don't matter. We know what happened to the Scottsboro boys and when accusations mattered more than evidence. We know what happened in courtrooms all across the South when Black defendants were railroaded and by all white juries and racist judges and prosecutors who didn't care whether the accused was guilty or innocent. And that history is in our bones. But because we know that history, we should be the last group of people willing to play these games with the facts. We should be we should be willing to say, I don't care. Or should I say we shouldn't be willing to say, I don't care what the evidence showed. I already know what happened because of the color of the people involved. And that's not justice. That's emotion dressed up as commentary, and it's tribalism. America has always had people who profit from division. Back in the old days, newspaper used sensational headlines to sell papers. They called it yellow journalism. And they exaggerated, they inflamed, they stirred up people's anger. Because, of course, as you all know, controversy sells. Today it's not just newspapers we're dealing with or television shows. We're dealing with social media accounts, podcasts, YouTube channels, political influencers, and cultural commentators. And the business model is the same. Keep people angry, keep people afraid, keep people divided, whether it's because of race, religion, etc. Men, women, etc. Just keep them watching, okay? And so the View personalities don't genuinely care about Carmelo Anthony, nor do they care about Austin Metcalf. This case gives them the perfect opportunity to do what they always do, which is turn a tragedy into profit. And again, I'm not telling anybody to ignore racism. I would never tell Black people to ignore racism. That would be foolish. Racism is real. Racial bias is real. Unequal sentencing is real. Desperate treatment is real. Police misconduct is real. Prosecutorial overreach is real. Bad judges, bad juries, bad outcomes involving Black defendants is real. But it's not automatically racial injustice. And that's the thing I want to drive home. Some of these people are just guilty, and they need to be locked up. And the penitentiary is full of people like that, of all colors. They need to be kept away from the free world. And that's the truth. And you wouldn't want to live next to them if they got out. Okay? And sometimes the case is just a tragedy. And that's the case with Caysen Allison, which I'm going to talk about today, the young man who was convicted of killing Jose Ramirez, a young man who's also was his schoolmate, along with Carmelo Anthony and the death of young Austin Metcalf. Okay. Nevertheless, you know, we're not going to just throw race on top of the case because race gets attention. That's not what we're going to do here. We're going to speak the truth, because when you do that, when you just throw race in, you just create distrust. You create more anger. You make people who already don't trust each other even less. You create a society that isn't cohesive. And a society that isn't cohesive doesn't produce. It fights. It breaks down. It destroys itself from the inside. And I don't know if you all have looked around or not, but there are a lot of people out there in the world who don't like Americans. They don't like citizens of the United States of America. Pick a reason. And the last thing we need to do is keep making more enemies. Nevertheless, people have been living on this continent. We've been living here for hundreds of years in the run-up of what has become the United States of America as we come upon our 250-year anniversary. We've had slavery, war, segregation, migration, immigration, civil rights battles, riots, protests, elections, court fights, court battles, school fights, housing fights, and every other kind of cultural conflict you can imagine. And at some point, we're going to have to figure out that this country is what we have. We're here, and none of us are going anywhere. And unless people want permanent conflict, we have to find a way to live with one another. And that doesn't mean we stop fighting for our people, but it means we stop creating racial conflict where the facts don't support it. It means we stop letting people who don't have to live with the consequences stir up the people who do. Okay? Now, there's something else I want to shout out to all my Texas people, because this is important and I want to drive this point home. See, there's a political agenda behind this, because this is bigger than one case or one panel on The View. The reason Texas keeps getting dragged into these conversations is because Texas represents something that they don't like. Texas represents power. It represents growth in a conservative state that attracts people, businesses, families, immigrants, Black folks, Hispanics, Asians, white folks, everybody, Indians. Texas represents a place that isn't supposed to work according to this liberal storyline they've been selling for years. They hate Texas. They hate the governor, the politics. They hate what Texas symbolizes. Texas is a conservative state with a conservative governor, no income tax, major cities, major industries, major universities, major hospitals, major airports, major ports, major energy production, major technology growth, major population growth. Texas is productive, is powerful, and becoming more powerful every year. And that creates a problem for people whose entire political message is built around the idea that conservative Southern states are backwards, racist, unsafe, uneducated, and undesirable. See, because if Texas is so racist, why does Texas have the largest black population in America? If Texas is so hostile to black people, why do most black people in America still live in the South? They leave California, they leave New York and Illinois and move to Texas. They move to South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, they move to North Carolina and Tennessee. And that's where the political agenda comes in. Because if they can take a case like Carmelo Anthony's case and point to Texas, say, see, Texas is racist, then they think they can damage the image of the state or the South in general. And they think they can scare people. They think they can make parents say, I wouldn't want to raise my children there. They think they can make professionals say, I wouldn't want to move my business there. They think they can make black people say, I don't want to live in that place like that. They think they can make young people believe that Texas is nothing but cowboys, racism, guns, and injustice. And once you understand that, you understand why they push these otherwise mundane cases to the forefront and sensationalize them. And see, again, this isn't just about one trial. This is about controlling the image. It's about protecting the image of places like New York and Illinois and California, because those states have real problems. They have high taxes, they have high crime in certain areas, they have very expensive housing. People are leaving, businesses are leaving, families are leaving, the middle class is dying there, people are getting priced out, black communities, all communities of working class people are ignored, the schools failed, they got a homeless problem. But instead of dealing honestly with those problems, it's easier to point down south and say, see, at least we're not Texas, they're racist. And that's politics. Because the more people leave those states, the more power they lose. They lose population, they lose tax base, they lose congressional influence, they lose electoral influence, they lose business, they lose credibility. And when people move down south to places like Texas and Florida, the Carolinas, etc., the political map starts to change. Money starts moving. Congressional seats start moving. Cultural power starts moving. Business influence starts moving. And people who control the national conversation don't like that. And so they attack the brand. They have to make Texas and some of these other southern states look unsafe and racist and hostile. And like a place where black people can't get justice, even though black people have always been part of Texas. Black people built Texas. Black people have been in Texas from the beginning. When people just tell the story of European conquest coming to North America, they love to talk about the Mayflower and Plymouth Rock. But what they fail to realize is those were English invaders, if you will. But what about the Spanish? See, Christopher Columbus was part of the Spanish contingent, and black people were in the Spanish world long before that. One of the earliest documented Africans in what became one of the earliest documented conquistadors, quote unquote, or European invaders was an African. And what became, and he migrated, he landed on the shores of Texas and became in what became and ended up in what became American Southwest. His name was Esteban de Dorantes, okay, also known as Estevanico. And he came through the Spanish exploration world, and his expedition shipwrecked off the coast of Texas. He later moved through what is the present day Arizona and New Mexico. Black people have been here. The Native Americans who were there will say the first European white man that we saw was a black man. And that matters because it destroys the idea that Texas is some foreign hostile land where black people don't belong. That doesn't mean Texas doesn't have racism. Not saying that. But so does New York. So does Illinois. So does California. We know Boston, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, they have racism too. There's racism in the North, racism on the West Coast, racism in the Midwest, racism is not a Southern invention. Hell, racism is an American condition. And that's why I don't fall for the game where people act like racism doesn't live in the red, it only lives in the red states. That's a lie. That's a political lie. That's a lie used to make liberal states feel morally superior while they ignore their own problems. They want to pretend that racism wears cowboy hats and only lives in Texas. But racism also wears suits in Manhattan, and racism also sits in school boards in Illinois. Racism also controls zoning in California. Racism also hides behind liberal slogans in cities where Black people still can't afford to live, still can't get good jobs, and still can't build generational wealth, and still get treated like political props every election. Somebody type Chicago in the chat room. So when The View or anybody else tries to take a case out of Texas and use it to make Texas the villain, remember they're saying, remember what they're doing. Texas is working, okay? It's inconvenient to their political narrative. So stop pretending that Texas or these other southern states are uniquely evil just because Texas is politically inconvenient to you all. And that brings us back to this Karmelo case, okay? This case gives them a vehicle. It gives them a way to say, look at Texas. It gives them a way to say, look at these southern races. Look at these stupid Black people who live down there. They need to move. See? It gives them a way to say, look at that conservative injustice. Nothing's changed. But if you're going to say that, then you better deal with the actual facts of the case. So, no, I'm not going to let them take one criminal case and strip out the facts and inject a political agenda and use it to smear our entire state. I'm not going to let them act like Black people don't belong in Texas. And Texas has the largest population of Black people in America. And I'm certainly not going to let a bunch of people sitting in a New York City television studio lecture us about racism like racism doesn't exist right up there out their front door. Now, as always, I have some video footage I'd like to review with you all. I will do my very best. I'm going to do my very best not to talk over it. Sometimes I fail in that regard, but I will try. But, you know, some people appreciate my yelling and screaming at the internet videos, and you know, I'll just do the best we can. But anyway, you guys make sure you hit the #1 button if you can hear this clearly. And I'm going to go ahead and get this thing moving along. There we go. Let's see. We got this young lady here. You all.
And I love it as The View is getting called to be canceled and sued over what they said about Carmelo Anthony. This is hilarious. Everybody's favorite Karen lawyer, Sunny Hostin, went on there and just lied through her teeth on what happened with Carmelo Anthony. She said several things, but the main ones were there were no other Black people under the tent with him, therefore it's racism. But no, in fact, there were several Black students there. They even testified on Austin's behalf. Then she said there were no Black jurors, which means racism, and they removed them for racism. But that's not at all what happened. Vetting process, 2 of them said they would have a hard time not being biased about the situation because he's Black. But
actually, shout out to Tommy David Verbal. Actually, one of the jurors said something to the effect that I would have a hard time convicting a brother. So that's why she was removed. And that just basically lets her know she's, you know, you're biased. You say something like that. Why would they, you know, let me explain something to you all about the jury process. You get rid of oftentimes, if there is a juror that's good for the other side, you'll get rid of them. And if there's a juror that's good for your side, they'll get rid of them. So you end up left with the jurors that's not good for either side. And that's just how the process works. So in effect, you don't get what you want, you get what's left. Okay. And that's pretty much how that works. Okay. So if you ever go to jury duty and you get removed, don't take it as they didn't like you. Just maybe one side said, well, this person might be a little bit too more pro the other side, so we're going to get rid of them. So just keep that in mind. All right, but let's keep listening.
But the 3 that they removed removed in the end were all educators. The reason they were removed was because they were educators and because this happened at a high school. Nothing to do with race. As always, The View continues to race bait. I think they are the biggest racists because they keep trying to put this narrative out there on how terrible everything is, and then they lie about it. And once again, Whoopi had to check her at the end.
All right, again, so, these people are in a New York City television studio, far removed from what's going on down south in Texas. Despite what people tell you, Collin County is a suburb of Dallas. Dallas is full of black folk. A lot of black people move out of Dallas County. They move on to places like Collin County. And so it's multiracial, it's multi-religious. The jury wasn't all white. I'm not saying there's not bias. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it would be at a track meet. Okay, somebody type track meet. Somebody type fast running in the chat room. Somebody type fast running, high jumping. Fast, when you think fast running, high jumping, do you think, okay, I'm just saying, just think about it. What color are the people that immediately come to your mind? I'm just saying, what's the ethnicity? Just give me a wild guess. When you think track star, in the legal sense of the word, and I say that because I know we have some people who are pervs here. I'm not talking about, the track. I'm talking about track stars, like people who run around the little circle-y thing, right, as fast as they can. Yeah, when I think track star, I'm not really thinking, the Irish per se, even though they can run. I'm not thinking of the English. I'm thinking of some black people, especially down south. And so to sit here and say that he was just under a tent at a track meet with all white people at 10 o'clock in the morning preparing for a track meet, I don't know. Doesn't even make sense. It just sounds like didn't really give a lot of thought. It sounds like what I said earlier, people are just trying to enrage people. And so, that's easily dismissed. And I don't know if somebody's suing them for defamation. I don't think that rises to the level of defamation. But it's definitely inaccurate information. And as again, you got people sitting up in there just saying crazy stuff, getting people all juiced up. And we don't need that. We have enough issues here in the United States without folk creating more problems. Shout out to all the membership.
I know we're playing the music, but Austin Metcalf's the victim, the deceased. His father went on a podcast and listened to it for yourself, but he called Carmelo Anthony a racial slur. And he also said that the reason that black people weren't on the jury is because black people are unable to hold bias from the trial because they don't know their own fathers, have a bunch of baby mamas running around living off of government assistance. So that is that's the thinking of the victim's father.
Well, let's not say that was the victim's thinking as well.
Of the victim.
Well, I mean, you know what? That was harsh. That was harsh. That was very harsh, very racial. Definitely very racial. Very, very racial. Okay. But Mr. Metcalf's son was stabbed to death at a track meet. And then he has had to deal with about 1.5 years of people trashing him and his family. Not making an excuse. It's very racial. Very, very racial. But there was a gag order, and this is his first opportunity to speak. Very, very racial. But let me point out the fact that if somebody murdered one of my children, I would probably tell the police, y'all better get to him before I do. I might not say anything. Okay, I might not say any racial words. It wouldn't even matter what color they were. But if somebody murdered my son in cold blood, the police might have to get to him before I do. I'm just saying. Okay, so whatever you think about Mr. Metcalf's racial tirade, it was clearly racial. Somebody type racial because I know some people in the chat room. You're making excuses for racists. No, he's an angry father lashing out in some racist ways and attempting to hurt people's feelings. I get it. It's very racist. Somebody type watermelon felon in the chat room. Very, very racist. Has racial undertones. But clearly his son was stabbed to death. So whatever you think punishment he should deserve because he pushed the other little boy or put hands on it, he paid the ultimate price. I'm just saying. So for all you people who are angry with Austin Metcalf's daddy, for saying those racial things, he lost his son. And I'm sure a lot of y'all would say a lot worse, irrespective of the person's color. I just want to point that out. Not asking you to be understanding. It was clearly racial. I'm not asking any understanding because I know who I'm dealing with. We have all went off into our little racial corners. It's us versus them. Somebody type us versus them. It's us versus them. And, you know, I get that, but we'll revisit that another time. We'll revisit that, the mean things people say when they've experienced a loss. Okay, but we'll let that go. Let's continue listening to this.
But of the victim's father.
And we'll let you sit with that. We'll be right back.
Boy. So we got
right here, man, I forget the brother's name. He's like conservative commentary. So, but I just found that very interesting. Let's move on to the next one. But yeah, you know, it's just like, why did he say it though? He just jumped out there. Was it just out the blue, Sonny? I mean, I know it was racist, right? Saying those mean things about the person who killed his son with a knife. I know that was mean. It was racist, but you know, he was talking about the person who killed his son with a knife. What if somebody killed your son with a knife? What would you say about him? I'm just pointing that out. Would you say would you have flowery words for him? I don't know. I don't think I would. I'm just speaking on a human level at that point. But let's keep looking at these videos.
It's a long time in the judicial system where prosecutors use what are called, Batson challenges.
Now, she's been a prosecutor. I want y'all to understand that she's a former prosecutor. Complaining about what prosecutors used to do.
And they
explain what that is.
It's a challenge that is used to strike a juror, generally a juror of color, for a race.
That's not. A Batson challenge is, well, a peremptory strike is what she's referring to. A Batson challenge is a challenge to that peremptory strike. So she's already fumbling over her words. I'll let her finish fumbling, and then I'll try to clean it up for her when we finish.
Race neutral reason. Right. Because you're supposed to have a jury of your peers, and you're not supposed to just strike someone because they're black. And in this case, they gave the reasoning that they're educators, and this happened, these were high school students, and this happened at a school track meet, so they couldn't be impartial because of that. I don't think that's an appropriate reason.
The best ones too.
Yeah, I don't think it's an appropriate reason to strike black jurors, especially when it's a young black teenager on trial, and especially when that particular area is made up of 10% of an African-American community. So I don't think he got a jury of his peers. So I think on appeal, there is a legitimate.
You're not entitled to a jury of your people. You're entitled to a jury of your peers. All right. So let me explain this. When the process called voir dire take place, it's a Latin word that means speaks the truth, speak the truth. It happens, well, it doesn't. It happens at the beginning of the trial. They bring a bunch of people in there. You ask them questions. And you try to figure out, how well will this person sit on my jury? What are their opinions? Hopefully you get the jury to speak back and forth with each other, and you kind of describe the case to them without necessarily describing the case to them. And then you and the other lawyers from the other side will go stand next to the judge at his bench, and you'll say, hey, we want to strike juror 1, 5, and 7. And we'll strike those for cause. Okay, what are your reasons? We want to strike this person because she's indicated that she can't be non-biased. She has a father who's a cop, or she has she's been a victim of SA, especially if you're dealing with some sort of crime or something like that. Or in a civil matter, let's say we want to get rid of this person. She was a defendant in a car accident. She's indicated that she can't be non-biased and she can't award money. Okay, got those for cause. All right. Are there any we want to just strike peremptory strikes? Yeah, we want to strike juror 8, 12, and 15. Okay, and then the other side will look over and say, well, all those people are black, or all those people are Hispanic, and we have a Hispanic defendant. Well, we're striking them because they live on the other side of town, and we just think we just think that them being on that part of town makes them naturally biased. Okay, that sounds like a race neutral reason, but when you start digging into it and say, well, there are other people who are not from this part of town, they're from a further part of town, and you didn't strike them. Why is that? So on its face, it looks like it's a race neutral challenge. It's a Batson challenge. Okay, but the reality is, it is race based. And so there was a case called Kentucky versus Batson, where that was brought before the Supreme Court, and it says, hey, you can strike, you can't, we're not going to continue to let you strike people for their race because it's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. And so they banned that. Okay, and that's how a Batson challenge works. That's something that has to be taken up on appeal, and it has to be reflected in the docket. You have to have all these notes, the transcript. You gotta compare and contrast. It's not necessarily guaranteed that it's going to work. Okay, because would it affect the eventual outcome of the case? I don't think so. Not in this case, because you got a murder weapon, a dead body, dozens of witnesses, and a confession. So I don't necessarily think that a black juror or whoever would affect the outcome of the murder conviction. Maybe he would have got manslaughter. Maybe they would have held out. And, when you get behind in those jury deliberation rooms, the jurors often, they haggle and, they come to agreements. They'll settle for something, especially when there's a lesser included charge. So, I don't want to let her statement just go unchecked, but I will let her finish speaking. You guys make sure you subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already.
Thing, a legitimate reason. I also think we have to look at self-defense here, because there seems to be two systems of justice at play in this country. And there have been for a very long time. I was part of the system, so I understand that, and I believe that to be.
She was a prosecutor. She was part of the system. She was a prosecutor.
True. In this case, this young man, you heard him say he put his hands on me, and I told him not to. This, the kid that died, and I have so much empathy for him and his family's loss. That kid was 200 pounds. This kid was 130 pounds.
Okay, so here's another thing, folks. All right, so they keep bringing up this weight difference, okay? It's my understanding, and we're going based on the internet. Carmelo Anthony was 5'11", 162 pounds. That's my understanding. 5'11", 162 pounds. He's about the same size as my oldest son, who's about 175 pounds, more or less. He's pretty tough. Okay. Carmelo is a free safety for his football team, right? So we talk about, look, and I'm just saying this is the information that was presented. I don't even know if it was presented to the jury, but my whole point is we're addressing the embellishment and the purposeful attempt to enrage people by many of these media types. So it does not take much to figure out the truth. Both of these boys played football. One of them was a linebacker. One of them was a free safety. Neither one of these individuals are the biggest group of people on the football field. Matter of fact, when you start talking about real big people on the football field, we're talking about Texas. We're talking about the Dallas area. You're talking about boys who are 6'6", 6'7", 350 pounds. That's big. As far as I'm concerned, somebody 160 pounds and 210 pounds, that's about the same size on the football field. Both of them play defense. Both of them are generally smaller than the biggest players on the team. But if he had all these issues, and I'm not trying to knock, and I'm not taking sides, I'm just trying to throw some fire. I'm just trying to throw some water on this fire. Why are we purposely trying to enrage other people with false narratives? That's my thing. I'm just asking questions. Why are we trying to are we trying to have a hot summer? I mean, what are we trying to do here? What's the purpose of telling people that this young man who allegedly had a scholarship to play football going to the next level was only 132 pounds? I mean 132 pounds and he's out on the football field playing free safety. Let's just think about that. Let's just really think about that. Okay. Does that even make sense? Does that even sound like it's reasonable to think that. You got one, and again, I'm not taking sides. And I don't even know what the jury heard. So this is not me talking as an attorney. I'm just analyzing this media response and trying to explain to you all that they are trying to inflame and enrage the public. And I don't like it, because we have to live here. You see, we have to live with the mess that these folks create. Just pointing that out. All right. Again, we can all acknowledge that a linebacker on a high school Texas football team was probably going to be bigger than a free safety from the opposing team. I'm just saying, let's not overdo it. Okay. He says, this young man, they're saying that Carmelo Anthony has all these different, he's epileptic and, but the boy played free safety for another football team. So you telling me he can play free safety, but a push is gonna kill him? A push puts him in danger of losing his life, but he plays free safety for a football team. That's what you all are telling me. Let common sense, just common sense. But let's keep listening.
And so, and the other kid was also taller than he is. He was the only black kid under the tent, and he was
the only black kid under the tent. Do y'all really believe that? I don't know.
Victim here had his twin brother with him, who was also a very large person. If you don't fear for your life, if you weigh 130 pounds, I weigh 130 pounds. Facing somebody that's 200 pounds, I would be terrified of that. I don't understand why self-defense was rejected by.
Well, self-defense was not rejected. It was the ordinary use of force was acceptable. But unfortunately, Carmelo Anthony pulled out a knife, and so that it went from deadly. He had a right to defend himself against the push. He could have pushed Austin back. He could have punched him in the eye. He could have kicked him in the shin. He could have kicked him in the balls. He could have stepped on his foot. He could have kicked his knee. That would be the ordinary use of force. But when you bring out a knife, when you bring out a gun, when you bring deadly force to a situation that requires ordinary force, that's when you lose the right to your self-defense defense. I don't think that's hard to understand. I think it's pretty clear to me. I mean, you don't bring a knife to a fist fight. That's all I'm saying. Okay? So let's keep listening.
This jury.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, especially the jury representation. That's what stood out to me. And we know there's plenty of evidence that there's sentencing disparity with people of color. The one thing to me, though, is what is the fair sentence when you take a life? And this is what I'm struggling with, because this is a tragedy across the board. A 17-year-old is dead. A 17-year-old is going to likely spend 35 years in jail. He could appeal at 17. I'd be curious what you think, because I wrestle with it. If it was, God forbid, anyone in my life, I would think 30 years seems about right. If they said life, I'd say that's too long for a 17-year-old. He could be rehabilitated.
Look, I think 35 years, if there is no self-defense claim, which is an absolute claim to this crime, absolute defense, I think that would be appropriate. But if you
somebody type absolute defense, because that's going to come into play when we talk about Caysen Allison. And remember, you all asked me for this. You remember how you wanted me to compare Trayvon Martin to Carmelo Anthony? Remember that, y'all? I did that, and you didn't like it. Sometimes you shouldn't ask questions. I'm the one, though. Somebody type the one in the chat room. I'm the one. See, I'm not going to spare your feelings, okay? But again, somebody type self-defense, absolute defense. Let's keep going.
look at other cases, there was the other case where there was a young black kid who was chased by Rick Chow, a store owner, accused of taking water bottles, which he didn't take, the 4 water bottles. He chased that young boy 130 yards, which is half of a football field, and shot him in the back.
Okay. See how she skips over the part that he chased him for 130 yards, and then Cyrus Belton, there was testimony that he pulled a pistol out and aimed it at Andy Chow, his son. You see that? Again, this is meant to inflame and anger people. And see, these folk in these media places, they reap a benefit from that in the form of eyeballs and profit. I'm just pointing it out. I just want to point it out. You can think what you want to think. You can think what you want to think. Okay. But I just want to point out, notice how some facts are deleted. They just get to the stuff that makes you mad and makes it racial, right? Did you see that? Now, again, this conversation is not for everybody, but if you had somebody who's constantly going between people, kicking up dust and causing trouble and creating strife and beef between folk, then you should begin to look at that person and ask yourself, well, what's their real purpose here? Okay, but I'm gonna let you all finish listening to this beautiful lady in New York City.
Claiming self-defense. And you know where he is right now? He's at home with his family because he was found not guilty.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cases like that.
If that is self-defense, I don't understand why this isn't.
When the system fails one time, I don't think we should then say, so then the system should fail.
But they're very similar self-defense claims.
Okay. There was no legal analysis in any of that. Nobody looked at any statute. We're not talking about the law at this point. I'm just talking to you guys about, you know, these people have powerful platforms. A lot of people are looking, and a lot of people take what they say as a goal.
He was sentenced to 35 years in prison, which he's appealing. The case has a lot of people divided. Some people believe that race was a factor in the trial because there were no black jurors. They were all the 3 black jurors that were there were educators, and they were released. They were struck for that.
Ooh, another lie, but we'll get to that in just a moment.
And some folks think, no, he got a fair trial. But is this a jury of his peers?
I don't think so. And you know, this has been an issue for such a long time in the judicial system, where prosecutors use what are called, you know, Batson challenges.
We just gonna move on. We're gonna move on. So that's all these people, they reap the benefit. They get money off of this. It's sensationalism.
His life has had value. And The View, especially Sonny, using what his father may or may not have said to make you feel less certain about his death is the most vile and dangerous lie told today. She is disgusting. She is deplorable. So here's God's verdict. The View took a legitimate conversation about jury diversity, about self-defense law, about whether 17-year-olds should face adult sentences, real conversations worth having. And they filtered every single one of those conversations through a racial lens designed to make you angry at the system and sympathetic to a man who brought a weapon to a public event and used it. That's what they did.
Now, he wasn't a man. He was a child. I mean, he was 17. He's a child. Both of them were children. We're not going to overdo it one way or the other, you know, to make people mad. It was 2 17-year-old high school students. They were children. All right. But let's keep listening. All right. So again, my whole point is this. You have a situation where you have people all across this media platform just really, really pushing these issues, and it's inflaming things. And look, the verdict is the verdict, but you know, why are we cherry picking facts? Let's go ahead and throw all the facts out there, and whether we hurt somebody's feelings, it shouldn't matter. Those are the facts. We're going to deal with the facts. Now, here's the thing. You all have asked me to talk about the Kase Allison case. Are you all familiar with that? Are y'all familiar with the Kase Allison case? This is a young man back in 2022. He stabbed a schoolmate to death, a young man named Joseph. I believe it's Joseph Ramirez. He stabbed him to death, and recently they call him Joe. And rest in peace to the families of Austin Metcalf and Joe and Jose. And well, what about this? What about that? And you know, people act like these cases are just interchangeable. You can just pick, and you know, it's not same facts. It's not going to be the same outcome. And you know, I'm gonna let you all listen to it, and then I'm gonna let you hear what people are saying. If for nothing else, you will begin to listen to the stuff that they emphasize and the stuff they leave out. I'm gonna let it play, and we are going to come back, and I'm gonna break this down. Keep listening.
That there is no systemic discrimination against people of color, more specifically black people. Allow me to educate you on that and to also call bullshit. So these two cases are in the same state, both claimed self-defense, and both used a knife to unalive the other person. Now this is Caysen Anthony, and he got into a fight at school with this Hispanic student right here, and in the fight took out a knife and unalived him. Initially, he was looking at murder charges, but they reduced that.
Now, is that it, sir? Is that all that happened? Is there anything else we should know about here in the public? Those of us who don't know anything about the case, is there anything else? Somebody type anything else. Is there anything else we should know about?
That and made it criminally negligent homicide, and he's only going to serve 10 years, if that, because they're fighting to reduce that too. And
why is it that they're fighting to reduce that, sir? Is there anything we should know? Somebody type, is there anything? Is there anything? Anything else?
As everyone has seen today, the verdict of the Carmelo Anthony case came out, and he is going to be serving 35 years in prison. Both claim self-defense. Both used a knife that they brought to school. If you don't see systemic discrimination in the judicial system, I can lead you to the water, but I can't make you drink.
Are there any more facts? Is there anything else we should know? Because that seems a bit harsh. I mean, gosh, if you just take it on face value, the white boy gets 10 years and the black boy gets 35. Same crime, same place. They were standing next to each other when they did it. Same identical facts. I mean, if you just listen to that, sounds pretty racist, right? And I think that's contrived. I think that they do that for a reason. Now, there's another person that gives a little bit more information, and but we'll go ahead and I'll let that one play a little later.
Inside the bathroom at the time of the incident, he was the young man who recorded an 8-second video of the fight. The video shows Joe Ramirez.
So there's a video of this fight. Okay, what does the video say?
Is throwing the first punch to Caysen Allison.
I'm sorry, hold on a minute.
What was one of the boys inside the bathroom at the time of the incident. He was the young man who recorded an 8-second video of the fight. The video shows Joe Ramirez throwing the first punch to Caysen Allison.
Okay, hold on a minute. So you saying the victim threw the first punch? The victim threw. Now, the other guy didn't say that. Okay, the other guy said that they just went to school, both of them had a knife, and they stabbed somebody, and one of them got 10 years, and the other one got 35 years. But now we learn from this video that the victim, the person who died, threw the first punch. Interesting. Somebody type into. Is there anything else? Is there any? Because it seems like some folk, not everybody, I'm just saying, seem like might be some more facts out here. Somebody type these facts that we need to hear before we just talking about is just straight up racism. Again, this is white and Latino people crime, not black people, but they keep bringing black people and say, well, look at what he got, and it's because he's white. Now, we hadn't heard about this because this has not been, if it was a black boy that got stabbed by a white boy, it'd be all over the news, probably, more likely than not. But because he was Hispanic, it's not so much, okay? So I'm just saying, is there anything else? Let's keep listening. Is there anything
That's when
else?
Allison is shown swinging back at him with a knife in his right hand. The two can be seen shifting to the corner of the bathroom, continuing to fight. Seconds later, Joe's brother is shown lunging towards Allison's friend, and 4 boys are seen.
So hold on a minute. Joe's, what? Did I miss something? So hold on a minute. Maybe we missed. So let's listen to this again.
To the corner of the bathroom, continuing to fight. Seconds later, Joe's brother is shown lunging towards
Joe's brother, the victim's brother, is shown doing what?
Towards Allison's friend, and 4 boys are seen fighting.
Lunging towards his friend. So it's 2 of y'all in there against 2. Okay, so it's 2. So the victim hit the perpetrator, and then the victim's brother hit the perpetrator's friend. So the 2 people, one being the victim and his friend, those are the aggressors. Somebody typed the aggressors. Wow. So it wasn't just a push. Somebody type a push. It wasn't simply just a push. Somebody was swinging on somebody. Because somebody typed, let them dogs go. They was dropping bees on them. That's what happened. They was dropping
one-on-one fights in that bathroom.
All right, so I don't know why we're lying.
Yeah, it was that was it. It was just 2 people in there, 2 on 2. That was it. Somebody typed 2 on 2 in the chat room. Just 2 on 2 in the chat room, apparently. That's what I gather from that video. All right, let's see what this gentleman has to say.
Lying about Caysen Allison. I feel like a lot of you guys, again, you guys see Caysen Allison and you say, oh my God, it's a white boy that did the same thing that Carmelo did. I have to make it seem like the two cases aren't similar. So now y'all are coming in and fabricating stuff. He went into the bathroom willingly. They said he didn't want to fight. And the reason why he didn't want to fight was because he knew he had a knife. And so if Joe wanted to fight, he was going to end Joe. He literally said that he was going to harm Joe. His friend Barber, she knew that he had the knife, and he usually didn't carry a knife, and he said he's carrying a knife for protection.
I wonder why he felt he usually doesn't carry a knife. Somebody say usually not. He usually doesn't carry a knife. I wonder what happened to make him think, I don't know. Maybe there was a reason that he thought he needed to carry a knife. Makes sense. I mean, and a knife is a dangerous weapon. Okay, somebody type dangerous weapon. What could have possibly made him think he should carry a knife? Let's keep listening to this.
So instead of telling an adult, he decided to do the same.
Now, he was an adult at the time because he was 18, sir. He was 18 years old. But let's keep going.
Same thing Carmelo Anthony did, pull out a pocket knife, but on school grounds. We don't need to lie about the situation, bro.
You're not lying. We don't need to lie. I don't know. I wonder why he felt all of a sudden he needed to carry a knife. I'm just asking questions. Somebody type just asking questions. I wonder if there's a reason why he felt the need to carry a knife. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just here asking questions. Let's keep listening. Here's another one.
Case with the Carmelo Anthony case because they're nothing alike. That's what everybody keeps telling me. And honestly, it's really irritating because I never said they were alike. In fact, legally, Caysen Allison's case is 10 times worse than Carmelo Anthony's. For one, Caysen
Allison is 10 times worse. 10 times worse. Golly, well, he should have got 350 years then, right? That's what it sounds like to me, is 10 times worse. 10 times worse. You in the bathroom, you tried to leave, somebody stole on you, and then his brother stole on your friend. It's 2 on 2. Somebody type 2 on 2 in the chat room. 2 on 2 in the chat room. I mean, that's what it seems like. That's according to this. But we still so much information. It feels like I'm missing out on something. But let's keep listening.
Caysen Allison had a prior record already. In June of 2021, he was charged with assault causing bodily injury, a Class A misdemeanor.
June of 2021, assault. Okay, so he has a prior record. Okay, got it. He's a bad guy. Bad guy.
Carmelo Anthony's prior record. Let's not forget why these two had beef anyways, because Caysen Allison was being aggressive to a female friend of his. Doesn't sound like a very nice guy to me. Now,
Caysen Allison was being aggressive. What does aggressive mean? What does that mean? What does aggressive mean? I'm trying to understand what aggressive means. Are we just trying to make people not like this young man? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. What did the jury hear? I'm asking questions. I want to know.
Let's talk about the cell phone footage that they have from the stabbing itself. It is about 8 seconds long, and it shows Joe throw the very first punch immediately after Caysen stabs him.
So Joe, the victim, threw the first punch. So that makes him the aggressor. It wasn't a push, it was a punch. He hit him. Okay, well, that's still ordinary force. So why did Caysen pull out a knife? I mean, what reason would he have to pull out a knife in a fist fight? I've told you all before, if this is an ordinary use of force case, then surely you can fight him back with a fist. Now I do understand it was 2 on 2, so that seems like a fair fight, right? Somebody type fair fight in the chat room. Let's keep going.
There was no jumping involved. The only thing proven in court was he was in fear.
No jumping involved. It's no jumping involved. Okay.
Fear of being jumped. And there's another report that shows that Joe's stepbrother fought Caysen's friend, which
Joe's stepbrother fought Caysen's friend. Hold on a minute. There was another report. I don't know. Are you holding back? It's felt to me like you. And why the other person said it was his brother, and now you saying it was his stepbrother. Seemed like you trying to make him a little distant to me. They were all in the bathroom, and I did remember the part we said they tried to leave. Allison tried to leave, and you wouldn't let him leave. I find that interesting. I find that very interesting. Let's keep pushing.
resulted in 2 separate one-on-one fights. And it even details
Two separate, 2-on-2.
That
Okay.
Ramirez threw the first punch, and Caysen and his friend, both of them were about to jump him before his brother got the friend and took him for a one-on-one.
I think I might have missed that a little bit. Let's go back and hear what she's saying.
Ramirez threw the first punch, and Caysen and his friend, both of them were about to jump him before his brother got the friend and took him for a one-on-one while he stabbed him.
It sounds to me like she's saying that. Let me listen one more time. Y'all tell me what y'all think, because I'm trying to understand what was said here. It seems to me. Let me see.
Punch. And Caysen and his friend, both of them were about to jump him before his brother.
Oh, so you saying that the two, Caysen Allison was going to jump Jose Ramirez, and it was Jose Ramirez to hit him in the face first before he could jump him in the men's bathroom that they wouldn't let the boys out of that was trying to leave. That's what you're saying? I've been in some fights in some school bathrooms before, and typically the one that's about to get jumped is not usually the one that hits the other one first, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe you know something I don't. Let's let you keep listening.
Got the friend and took him for a one-on-one while he stabbed him. So that was the defense attorney's strategy, was to say he was being jumped, but testimony and video footage disproved it. Hence why he actually got time.
2-on-2. Okay.
If he was actively being jumped, he would have got off on this charge completely. People also like to touch on the fact that Caysen actually didn't want to fight. He didn't want to fight at school, but he didn't have a problem fighting at all.
Oh, so the one that he didn't want to fight at school. But I thought you said he was about to jump Jose. But now you're saying he didn't want to fight at school. But if he wanted to jump him and he went in the bathroom to fight him in the bathroom at school, and now you're saying he didn't want to fight him at school, I'm so confused. It's a lot of words being said right here, and they seem to be, they're confusing me. Maybe it's me. Maybe you all understand what she's saying. I'm just listening. Somebody type, we're just listening in the chat room.
The number one thing y'all want to throw out for the Carmelo Anthony case. Oh, why did he even bring a knife to a track meet? Well, why did he bring a knife to school? He knew there was.
I don't know. Why did he bring a knife to school? Why did he bring a knife? And keep in mind, the fight was supposed to happen after school. So he thought that he would need the knife after school. I wonder why he thought he would need a knife, a dangerous weapon, after school.
Tension already. He knew a fight was possibly brewing. So why did his defense team get to use that it was a split-second reaction during a fight, but Carmelo Anthony didn't get to use that excuse, even though he had no pre-notion that violence was going to occur? So let's talk about Madison Barnes' testimony. She was both the ex-girlfriend of Joe Ramirez and a friend of Caysen Allison's. She testified that Caysen told her he wanted Joe on life support, he wanted to stomp his head in, he wanted his jaw dangling from his face, and he wanted Joe in the hospital. And then he brings a knife to school where he knows he's going to end up seeing Joe. Now let's go back to the after prom party that started this whole chain of events, where people are claiming that Ramirez pulled a pew-pew out on Allison. But there's literally
did I miss something? Hold on a minute. Did I miss something? Let's go back here real quick. You said what? Who did what? I think I'm confused here. Hold on a minute.
But there's literally a recording of Allison telling somebody else that Ramirez's friends pulled a pew out on them. He doesn't say Ramirez pulled it out. And to the recording of Allison telling somebody else.
I'm so confused right now. Somebody type pew pew. Pew pew. What is a pew pew? Is that Spanish? Is pew pew? What does that mean? Who pulled a pew pew on who? Somebody pulled a pew pew? That seems like, somebody type pew pew in the chat room. Everybody who hears pew pew, what is a pew pew? Is that like Japanese for something? Is that some kind of sushi or something like that? Let's listen to that carefully in context, because I had some people trying to talk to me, and I think I might have missed something. Maybe you all picked it up. I have not heard, I didn't hear anybody say this.
That Ramirez's friends pulled a pew-pew out on them. He doesn't say Ramirez pulled it out. And to
So you mean the same, you say, so the victim's friends, according to you, put a pew-pew on Allison? A pew-pew is a gun. That is a firearm. Why haven't we heard that? Now, I get what you're saying. It wasn't Joe Ramirez Jr., the victim, who pulled a pew-pew. You said his friends had a pew-pew and they were able to pull it. My goodness, why aren't they telling us that? Is that what the jury heard? The jury heard that Ramirez's friends pulled a pew-pew on Allison. That's what the jury heard? Everybody in the chat room with common sense say, that's very interesting. I wonder if Kase Allison, you know, the guilty white boy who stabbed this Mexican and should have got 35 years like Carmelo had, I wonder if he contemplated the fact that this group of boys or young men had pulled a pew-pew on him before. Now, where did it happen? Did we hear where it happened at? Because I don't think that was explained clearly either. I'm not sure. But I guess we'll keep listening. I guess we'll have to revisit that. I guess we'll have to, you know, listening is fundamental. Let's keep listening.
top it all off, at the end of everything, he ran, not to a school official, but he booked it from the school all the way home and didn't just go crying to his mom about what happened. He locked himself in the bathroom, called somebody, and tried to get out of town. Literally told them, come pick me up and take me to Waco because I did something bad at school.
Okay. So this was after the issue, but I don't know, we probably need to get back to this pew-pew because I've had guns pulled on me before. Matter of fact, when I was 18 years old, I had a gun pulled on me and it was very traumatic.
I was breaking down the case and
you know, I know how that affects me, but maybe I'm different. Let's keep listening. Somebody type pew-pew in the chat room. This lady, let's let her continue.
in my last video, I was breaking down the Caysen Allison case and why I think it's 10 times worse than the Carmelo Anthony case. I got through almost everything before TikTok said I can't add any more clips, so this is part 2. I want to start this video by talking about the wounds that Caysen Allison gave to Joe Ramirez. There was one big slash across the chest that entered the lung and the heart. That was the fatal wound that took his life. There was another stab wound to the lung area through the torso. There was a wound to it.
So slash across the chest, another one through the torso. So he poked him, he slashed him. I don't know which came first. So that's 2. That's 2. Okay. That's 2 of them right there. That's 2. This happened in the bathroom. He used that knife. Okay. There's no doubt.
To his butt and a wound to the back of his left forearm. And this right here is my number 1.
So basically we have 4 entry wounds. Okay. There was 2 to the front of the body, a poke, a stab. And I'm assuming the other boy, as he was going down or was on the ground, he got stabbed in the forearm, left forearm, and the buttocks area, lower back area. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay. So we got 4. Okay, so we definitely have an intentional killing going on here. This is intentional with a deadly weapon. Why didn't he get 99 years? Somebody type 99 in the chat room, but again, somebody type pew-pew in the chat room.
Reason why Caysen Allison's case is so much worse than what Carmelo Anthony did. Wounds to the back of the body specifically show that more force than was necessary was used.
No, it showed that he was trying to kill him. That's what it showed, baby. It shows that he was trying to kill him. It shows that he clearly intended to use deadly force. That's what it shows, okay? So it wasn't just like, I'm going to stab you and run away, and maybe you'll live and maybe you won't. No, he tried to kill him, okay? It wasn't one stab. It was a killing, okay? We can agree on that. There was definitely intent. Let's keep pushing.
That's why his self-defense claim is a mute. So if Case
No, you can kill somebody if they're using deadly force against you. You have a right to use deadly force if they're using deadly force against you. Okay? Or you, and again, remember, somebody type reasonable man. Y'all remember I was in my office yesterday and I explained A reasonable man standard, you're allowed to make mistakes. The reasonable man standard does not say you have to be right. It just says you acted as a reasonable person would in that situation. That's the first week of law school. One of the first things you learn. That's something that traverses all of the law, whether we're talking about civil, criminal, or whatever. Okay. And the jury's job is to try to figure out whether or not what you did was reasonable or not. That's the reasonable man standard. You're learning something. Everybody in the chat room, reasonable man standard. And that also transfers to reasonable police officer. Sometimes the police officers do crazy things. They shoot people who are unarmed. And the question is not whether or not they were armed or not, whether or not the cop was reasonable in his actions. I know you don't like it. I'm just telling you what the law says. Be mad at me. But all I'm doing is saying this is how they got here. You don't like the fact that I'm telling you, fine. Close your ears, scream out loud, whatever. That's the law. It's been that way for centuries. Let's keep listening.
Caysen Allison was scared for his life, trapped in the bathroom, and he was able to get that big old slash across Joe's chest, which then turned him around in fear and pain. He would have left, but he didn't leave. He continued stabbing.
He finished them off. That's what he said. He finished them all. He killed them. It was intent. Horrible, horrible situation. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Somebody type pew pew in the chat room.
With aggression, with rage, anger, violence, and a hunger to kill this boy. I'm not saying Ramirez.
That's usually how it happens, baby. That's what happens when people get killed. It's somebody meant to do it with a knife.
Was an angel. I've heard about his record. He was known for fighting. He was known for jumping.
I'm sorry. Hold on a minute. What? He was what? I'm sorry. I keep missing stuff. She said, what did she say about the victim, Jose Ramirez? Let's listen again.
I'm not saying Ramirez was an angel. I've heard about his record. He was known for fighting. He was known for jumping.
He was known in the community for fighting, and he was known in the community for jumping. But you said that he didn't get jumped in the bathroom because it was 2-on-2. That's what you told me, ma'am. You said he was 2-on. Did the jury heard this? Did the jury hear this? So you said that he's known for jumping people, but they didn't jump in the bathroom. It was 2-on-2. It was a fair match, even though they didn't want to let him out the bathroom. So he was known for jumping people. He was known for fighting people. And according to you, his friends had pulled a pew-pew out on Kase Allison sometime before. That's a lot of information. They didn't say that on The View. I hadn't heard anybody say that on The View. I mean, because if you are known for jumping people, perhaps Kase Allison thought y'all might jump me. Maybe he thought if they got a knife, they pulled a pew-pew on me before and they jumping people, because it's no longer just about me and Jose Ramirez, because I'm fighting all of y'all. So all of you all are my assailants. And if one of y'all pulled a pew-pew on me, maybe I should get something. You know, I need better than some chopsticks. Let me get a knife. Y'all gonna jump me, at least I should have it. I'm just saying, I'm just speaking hypothetically as a juror, and wasn't in the jury, don't know what they were thinking. But I see one person who is known for jumping people, whose friends pulled a pew-pew out, whatever a pew-pew is. I don't know what a pew-pew is. Some people in the chat room are saying it's a gun. I'm not sure. I don't speak that language. But apparently, Kase Allison has some substantial fear of that somebody who's going to use dangerous force against him. I'm just saying. And this other person was known for jumping people. Very interesting. Very interesting. Seems a little different thus far than Carmelo Anthony. To me, seems a little different. But maybe you all see the similarities. Y'all can help me out later. Let's keep listening.
Okay, I get that. Austin was known for being a bully as well. Listen to the cheerleader's testimony. It's out there. Hunter's known to be a hothead. He said it himself. Not saying these people are angels. But what I am saying is the intent in one's mind.
So you saying Joseph Ramirez wasn't an angel? The intent. What's somebody type intent? She is breaking the law down. She should have a law degree too. Gosh, Lee, let's keep
I
listening.
am saying is the intent in one's mind. When something like this happens, it does matter. It matters. So all in all, Caysen Allison has a prior record. Carmelo Anthony does not. Allison knew he had a preconceived thought that a violent act could occur. He still brought a knife. And Allison stabbed multiple times, even after he got him down. Caysen Allison tried to leave town. And there's also no body cam footage of him showing an ounce of remorse or questioning if he was going to be okay.
Maybe because he meant to do it. Maybe he meant to do it, ma'am. Maybe like he intended to kill him. Like, I know that's hard to digest, but maybe he intended to kill him and he wasn't remorseful about killing him. And I know that's hard for regular people to hear, but some people intend to kill people. Now, we don't know what his motivation was. Pew, pew. We don't understand what the issue was. I'm not sure. But we do know that he did pew, pew him. Or not pew, pew. He did talk about a pew, pew. And he did stab 4 times. Okay? I'm just listening. I haven't gathered all the facts yet. I'm still listening because it's hard.
Two vastly different type of people. One got 10 years. One got 35. Now, with everything I've said in part 1 and part 2,
now the other thing is, Austin Metcalf didn't pull a pew pew. None of his friends pull a pew pew out on Carmelo Anthony. So that's a big difference, ma'am. I think we should point out the fact that that's a big difference. Carmelo Anthony, I mean, I've heard the internet's a lot of stuff about Austin Metcalf and his brother Hunter, but I've yet to hear that he had pulled a pew pew out on Carmelo Anthony at some prior occasion at the prom, at the after party. I didn't hear that. So there was, in my opinion, and they just met. They didn't even know each other. They just kind of met under a tent in a rainstorm. And that's where their problems popped off. But these other boys had a previous history. They knew of each other. The Caysen Allison apparently knew of Mr. Jose Ramirez's reputation for jumping people, and he himself had experienced what is tantamount to assault with a deadly weapon by at least one of his friends if they pulled a pew pew out. You see the difference? I see the difference, but maybe I'm missing something. Let's keep listening to the broadcast, because y'all said that these cases are identical, because white boy got 10 years, black boy got 35 years, the same case. That's what y'all told me. That's what you all told me. So I'm here to let somebody type boule in the chat room. Somebody type he's against his people in the chat room. Come on, let's get all that in there. Somebody type sellout in the chat room. I need all that. Because I'm just asking questions and pointing out facts. Somebody type pew pew in the chat room. Come on now. Come on, let's get to boule. Let's get to sellout, house Negro. Get them all in there. Light skinned, biracial. Somebody told me I was a Mexican. Damn, I wish I could speak Spanish like a Mexican. I have me a whole nother job. But anyway, let's go ahead and keep listening to this. Let's keep on listening.
you still come off in the comments like Carmelo is worse,
yes,
please go get your head checked.
I'm going to do it, baby. I'm not saying who's worse. This is a tragedy one way or the other. These two young men in prison and 2 young men are dead. It's about 18. These are babies. They couldn't, sad. You know what I'm saying? They was ready to start their life. It's a sad situation. But we'll go ahead and listen to another couple of them and see what else other people have to say. Maybe we'll learn some more.
I just read about this news report coming out of Texas about 2 young men who got into an altercation. Some words were exchanged. One of them was stabbed.
Is that it?
Unfortunately, that child passed away. And the other one is now being sent to prison. Do you think you know who it is? This is Caysen Allison.
Okay.
He was reportedly bullied by Joe Ramirez. For a long while. And they met up in a bathroom somewhere.
So he was allegedly bullied by Joe Ramirez for a long while. That's some new information. Somebody type long while. So you telling me Jose Ramirez bullied, shout out to RS11, bullied Caysen Allison for a long while. Okay. I have not heard that. So these people been knowing each other. Been knowing each other. That's what you're telling me. They been knowing each other. Because see, Carmelo Anthony and Austin they just met under the tent. That was just some testosterone flaring up and crazy, just went crazy quick. These people they got history. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys. That's what you're telling me. This is history. Okay. All right, let's keep listening.
Words were exchanged, and Caysen stabbed Joe. If you hadn't heard about this, I'm not surprised because it didn't break national news. Every news article that I've seen about it.
That's because he stabbed a Mexican boy, not a black boy. That's why. That's why you hadn't heard. Ain't no money in that. Okay, I hate to. Didn't remember y'all heard what I said? Sensationalism. We played a racial game. I tell people our racism is part of American culture here. This is what we do. Like the Super Bowl and the World Series and Game 7 of the NBA Finals. That's what we do here in America. We play the racial game. It's our national pastime. Apple pie, the American flag, and racism. That's what we do, baby. And that don't sell. White boy, Mexican boy, they look like they could be cousins. No, we need a black and a white. And we can get them, we can sell the scared white people. We can keep them in the suburbs. We'll have them watching from sun up to sundown. We'll make the blacks enraged. Another victimization, we'll get the new printout of the Black Lives Matter t-shirts going. That's what we do. It sells. Racism sells, and no kind of racism sells more than black and white racism. They love it. What we do, baby. Ha. Let's keep listening.
Has been a local news station. Caysen got negligent homicide in 10 years.
It's called criminal negligent homicide. But go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
And he's appealing the case. I'm not surprised.
He's not appealing the case. He's appealing the sentencing. Because criminal negligent homicide, the maximum you can get is 2 years. But the judge basically gave him an enhancement because he had a dangerous weapon. And so because of that, he ended up getting 10 years. But, I don't know. I'm going to let you finish. I'm going to let you finish talking, sir.
This didn't make national news. It doesn't fit the narrative that people are trying to paint about black people. Meanwhile, Carmelo Anthony never met the boy he accidentally should be negligent homicide, just like Caysen. But this is Texas. From all the reporting that I read, Caysen was wanting to hurt his bully. He gets negligent.
Let me just point out to you all, I don't like doing this. Okay, I don't. I like talking about history. I'd like talking about sociology. I like relating it to modern times. This is stuff I like to do. I find that interesting and pleasant. I don't like to do this. Matter of fact, I think I've repeated it several times on several occasions. I have a disdain for the criminal practice of law, whether we're talking about defense work or prosecutorial work. I don't even like talking about it. When I was a young law clerk, when those inmates would send letters to my judge asking for pleas, I just put them in a file and never look at them again. Okay, I don't like it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about the crime. I don't want to hear about how you're innocent. I just don't like it. Okay, and the only reason I'm doing this is because you all keep coming to my page. You keep bringing this up over and over and over again. Well, what about Trayvon Martin? What about the Chud the Builder? What about this self-defense? And I can't live without, well, let me say it like this. I'm not going to let you come on my page and bully me and make it seem as though I'm wrong when clearly all you have to do is just read the basic statutes and you would understand that this is accurate information I'm giving. Okay. And, but I hope so far, without us going too deep into this broadcast, you've already realized there's a lot of differences going on between Caysen Allison and the Carmelo Anthony case. I hope just basic common sense. Okay. But, I don't like doing this. I don't. And I feel sorry for the families of Caysen Allison and Carmelo Anthony. And I feel sorry for the families of Jose Ramirez and Austin Metcalf, and I feel sorry for their parents. Nobody wants to bury their child. Okay, these are all very young men. These are babies, 17, 18-year-old boys doing what they do. And, you know, I don't like talking about it, but I'm doing it because I think it's necessary, because there's just absolutely so much ignorance out there. And it's not necessarily coming from you all. You are simply the consumers, but there's so many folk out there who are sensationalists. And see, unlike Willie D brought me on to his page and he was cool with it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, you see, we went back and forth 4 or 5 times. So that was a great educational experience. But when you have shows like The View and you have these other shows and they just push this one side and they don't have anybody in there pushing back or anybody in there that acts like they even know what they're talking about, it's just a bunch of emotionalism. Then you got folk like you, regular people, who want to come in and take what they say as written in stone, and then you go live your life. You live in fear. You're angry with your fellow American. Next thing you know, that escalates to something else, and it makes it really impossible for us to live in this country together. And so that's my problem. I have to live here. We have to live here. And so I'm trying to find a way so we can live here together. But I'm going to let this gentleman continue speaking, and you all make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
Homicide. Well, Carmelo Anthony gets 35 years in murder? Please explain to me how the justice system in Texas can view both these cases so very differently. One of the things that I've heard people tell me is that Carmelo said, "Try me," or something to that effect. How many times in the Bible does God say, "Don't tempt me"? And then when somebody does...
All right, well, he's not God. He was a 17-year-old boy. We're going to move on to another video. He's kind of like listening to my biochemistry professor back in college. I can't take it without going to sleep. But here's someone we all know. Let's take a listen. Let's take a listen to the good, somebody type the good doctor in the chat room. The good doctor, for you all who don't know, this is Dr. Umar Johnson. He's a psychologist. I think he's out of Baltimore, back east somewhere. And he's known in the Black community as a person who is an advocate for Black interests and so on and so forth. Let's listen to what he has to say about this case.
Indicted with murder.
That's a fact. No,
we know
I
they don't. You know why? Because there's the case of another boy by the name of Caysen Allison. Have you heard of him?
No.
Same year, same state.
Former Belton High student Caysen Allison was sentenced today to the maximum 10 years in prison for the fatal stabbing of fellow student Joe Ramirez. This comes after a jury found Allison guilty of criminally negligent homicide, and a judge added a deadly weapon enhancement to his potential sentence.
Sound like the judge was mad. Somebody typed the judge was mad at him. Let's go.
6 News reporter Sydney Walker was in the courtroom for today's sentencing and has the latest.
Nearly 3 years after Joe Ramirez died, the man who stabbed him will spend a decade behind bars. Judge Wade Faulkner sentenced Allison.
Now, you all just saw something that said Bell County. Bell County, Texas is about 40% white and about, I'll say about, 30% Hispanic, 20% Black, more or less. And the rest is maybe Asian or something like that. So it's a pretty diverse county. That's where this trial took place.
Allison to 10 years in confinement in the institutional division. This comes after 9 witnesses testified, including the mothers of both Ramirez and Allison, school
9 witnesses testified.
Employees who responded to the stabbing, and Allison's therapist. 3 Belton ISD staff members described lasting trauma from that day, sleepless nights, anxiety, and PTSD. One teacher said the incident forced her into medical retirement. Joe's family tearfully shared how his loss has changed their lives.
Shout out to Big J. Thank you so much. I'm going to get with you guys in a minute.
And say they haven't received true justice. The defense presented Allison's parents and counselor, who testified about his growth and remorse over 3 years of therapy, revealing that Allison is now a father. Defense attorney Boyd warned that prison...
So Caysen Allison had him a baby. He's got a baby mama. Somebody type baby mama.
Would be a, quote, death sentence for his client, and asked for just 2 years. But prosecutors successfully argued for the maximum, calling Ramirez's death, quote, entirely avoidable. When Faulkner announced the 10-year sentence, Ramirez's family erupted in applause and cheers. The judge quickly restored order while Allison's family sat in stunned silence. Following the sentencing, Ramirez's mother took the stand, looked Allison in the eye, and said, quote, "You get this measly 10-year sentence while I'm serving a life sentence without."
No, baby, he ain't gonna do 10 years. He's gonna do about 5 years. And he was about to do a year until the judge gave him that enhancement. In other words, if it's a 2-year max and he got 2 years, he would have been out in a year. So if the judge hadn't given him that enhancement, he'd been out by next Christmas. But let's go ahead.
My son. The DA's office said, quote, "They hope today's verdict can allow Joe's family and our community to move forward." Allison was immediately taken into custody and booked into the Bell County Jail, where he began his sentence today. In Belton City.
What happened in Caysen Allison's case, Loon? This white boy invited this Latino boy to the school's bathroom for a fight.
Sir, I don't think that's what they said. I think what happened was, sir, doctor, Caysen Allison and his friend went to the bathroom, and Mr. Ramirez and his friend, according to what we've heard so far, his one other friend were already in there, and they hit him. I don't think they invited him in there. I think they, according to my understanding, that the other guys caught him in there, sir, respectfully. I'm just saying. Okay, so that maybe want to check your facts. Maybe check your facts, sir.
The white boy, Caysen Allison, was armed with a knife.
I wonder why.
He invites him to fight him with a knife.
Well, according to what the other lady said, Joe Ramirez Jose hit him in the face. That's what the other lady said, sir. So I don't think he invited him to fight, according to what the other lady said, who was on Joe Ramirez's side. The white boys, as you said, tried to leave and they wouldn't let him. Okay, I'm just some inconsistencies here, but we'll let you keep going.
And in the course of the fight, he pulls out the knife, stabs the Latino 4 times. He dies alone. Same year, same state. He doesn't get charged with murder.
He got charged with murder, manslaughter, and criminal negligent homicide, and the jury convicted him of criminal negligent homicide. So he was charged, he just wasn't convicted, respectfully, sir.
Charged with aggravated involuntary manslaughter or something to that effect. Guess what his sentence was?
What?
Premeditated. Carmelo didn't know they was coming into the tent.
It wasn't premeditated, sir. Premeditated means you go and you plan to kill somebody. That's premeditated. This wasn't a plan. This was some kind of spontaneous meeting in the men's room. Respectfully. Somebody type respectfully to the doctor.
Case, he invited the boy. He invited him to the bathroom, shanked him 4 times, Loon, murdered him. Even the students in the school said he was saying he wanted to put him on life support.
Yeah, he said he wanted to put him in the hospital. I don't think he said that. So that might be a little embellishment here. Again, there are some people who benefit from racial discord. They make money off of that. You know, hey, you know what? I need people to feel like there's a need for the services I provide. We need an all-black school up here in Philadelphia, Delaware, so these kids can be safe from this racial violence. You know, so we can get more people. You don't want your child to get shanked 4 times going to school with them white folks. So y'all need to help me get this school going. So I can, so I can protect your children. You see what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Okay, let's keep listening.
Guess what his charge was? Aggravated involuntary manslaughter or something similar. Guess what the sentence was? With 10 years. Guess when he'll get paroled? In 5. Help me understand something, Lou. Help me understand. Carmelo Anthony, Caysen Allison. Same age, same state.
Same age, same Texas. Somebody type Texas and somebody don't mess with Texas. Let's keep going.
The one, self-defense. Murder conviction, 35 years. The other, premeditated stabbing, 4 times. Aggravated.
Man, I'm just waiting for the breakdown on this rap song, man. I know it's about to drop, man. He's like, it's about to drop, man. It's the intro is banging.
Manslaughter. It's crazy. 10-year sentence. He's home in 5. Because Carmelo was convicted of murder, Loon, he has to do half the sentence. 17 and a half years. Caysen Allison, 4 shanks.
Oh,
he'll be home in 5.
Okay, well, we heard a lot. You heard a lot. I've heard enough, man. Let's go ahead and continue. Let's see if we can sort this thing out. Like I said, people ask me to compare Caysen Allison's case to Carmelo Anthony's case, and because a lot of people want to use these two cases to prove a racial point, in my opinion, and I understand why they're doing it. I get that. Carmelo Anthony, a young black boy at the time, stabbed Austin Metcalf, who was another young black boy, 17, at a school track meet and received 35 years, whereas the white boy, somebody type white boy, all the white people in the chat room type white boy, the white boy, Caysen Allison, right, stabbed Joe Ramirez, a young Hispanic man, and both of them were 18 at the time, inside the school bathroom and received a measly mere 10 years. 10. He can do that standing on his head, man. So people look at that, and they say, there it is. That's Texas. It's racism. Black kid got 35 years. White boy get 10 years. Every time I say white boy, I want y'all to type white boy in the chat room. White boy get 10 years. It's just that simple, man. Or is it? That's too easy. It's too easy. That's lazy, man. That's convenient. And more importantly, that's not an legal analysis. Caysen Allison's case becomes more complicated than the internet wants it to be. And I know this is not what y'all want to hear. I'm sorry. I apologize for not letting y'all hear what you want to hear. My bad. My bad. I'm sorry. But I'm not going to do that here. Let's go over some facts that the jury heard. And again, I just want you all to hear what the jury heard. So you all sit as the jury. Okay? Let's go over some facts. 18-year-old Caysen Tyler Allison was charged with murder after the May 3rd, 2022 fatal stabbing of 18-year-old Jose Luis, also known as Joe Ramirez Jr., inside a bathroom in Belton High School in Belton, Texas. Now, the police arrested Caysen Allison off campus about 20 minutes after the stabbing. He didn't get far. He went home. Okay? He was formally charged with murder the next day on May 4th, 2022. Now, mind you, this is a boy was a senior in high school, was going to graduate. I believe it was the graduation date was May 29, 2022. We still dealing with the remnants of COVID and everything. But bottom line is, it happened in Bell County, which is a very diverse central Texas county with about 41% white, 22% black, 27% Hispanic. And the county demographics do undercut that lazy assumption that this was automatically going to be a white town with an all-white jury pool, okay? All right, who just gave the defendant a pass. That's the first thing I see. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty. According to the trial testimony, all right, this is what the jury heard. I don't know what else the jury heard, but let me let you hear what the jury heard. Okay, you're sitting as the jury. I want y'all to listen to me. Shout out to Daniel Moore. And if you learn something, I should earn something. I don't care if you like it or not, but we're going to learn what the jury heard and you apply the facts. According to the trial testimony, the conflict between Caysen Allison and Jose Ramirez, it didn't start in that school bathroom. It began much earlier. In my understanding, it led up to a situation that happened on prom night. At an after party. You go to the prom, you dance, you go to an after party, which I'm assuming took place in April 2022, because that's when proms usually take place. And that at that after party, there was an argument between Jose and Caysen. And the jury heard testimony that Jose Ramirez, his friends, his friends allegedly pulled a gun on Allison. This is what they heard. The jury heard that his friends or the people he was with pulled a gun on him. Somebody typed pew pew in the chat room. This is what the jury heard. So you mean the victim the victim was with people that pulled guns on the perpetrator? I want you to think about what that does to a person's mindset. Have you ever had a gun pulled on you? You're a high school senior. You're about to graduate at the end of May. You go to prom night after a party, there's a heated argument, and then somebody pulls a strap out on you, or at least you think they do. See, to me, that changes a lot. And that puts fear in your mind of being jumped, shot, or seriously hurt. It's on your mind. And from that point forward, you're not just thinking about a school fight anymore. You're thinking about whether these same people may come back with a gun or jump you. Keep in mind, the young lady said that Joe Jose Ramirez was known for jumping people. So this is in the boy like to fight. That's what they said. Okay, and whether they may be seriously hurt, you know, or whether they may not be able to make it home. This is what this boy is thinking about. And that's you know, even the thought of a gun being pulled on him. Because remember, I want you to think about that. You're allowed to be wrong under the reasonable man standard. You're allowed to be wrong. Okay? So even the thought of a gun, that a gun was pulled on you, right? Maybe it wasn't a gun. Maybe it was a BB gun. I don't know. Right? But even the thought that it was pulled on you, the question did you act as a reasonable person would under the same circumstances moving forward? So when the jury heard testimony that Allison claimed Ramirez and his friends had pulled a gun on him after the party, that wasn't some small detail. They heard that. Now, I hadn't heard that in the national media. Okay, that went directly to his mental state. What was he thinking about at the time when he was in that bathroom? More importantly, would a reasonable man, a reasonable person feel like their life was threatened if somebody pulled a gun on them? Would you think that you could suffer great bodily injury after somebody pulled a gun on you? I think the jury would think so. And the fact that Allison had a gun been pulled on him helps explain why he believed he needed a weapon to protect himself. Because remember, his friend said he never used to carry a weapon before. Does that start? This, you sitting as the jury. Okay, the jury is hearing this. So if a person believes dangerous force has already been threatened against him in the form of a gun, then it's easy to understand why that person may start thinking in terms of protecting himself from a dangerous force. And that's why this evidence mattered to the jury. So following that incident, Caysen Allison, who had a gun pulled on him, you know, the boy who got 10 years, somebody typed white boy who got 10 years, he later sent a message to his friend saying, bro, bring me a gun. Specifically, he was talking to Madison Barnes, Joe Ramirez's ex-girlfriend, and he said something to her. This is a close friend of Allison, testified that Allison had Caysen had made threats against Ramirez before the stabbing. And according to her, Allison said he wanted Joe on life support. This happened after he had the gun pulled on him. So you can imagine how mad would you be, you talking to your homegirl, who is Joe Ramirez's ex-girlfriend, and it's always a little lady in between all that, and she acting as a go-between, apparently, right? So what did he say? Caysen said he wanted Joe on life support, wanted to stomp his head in, wanted his jaw dangling from his face, wanted him in the hospital. This is what the white boy said. That's powerful evidence. That's he was mad. Now, mind you, this is after the gun was pulled on him, right? So he mad. But see, that's the kind of evidence the prosecutors use to argue intent and anger and motive and premeditated hostility. The jury also heard a Snapchat voice message from Caysen when he said, we finna catch them tomorrow, and then ended up by saying, I'm gonna send him to the hospital. Think about that. Now they had planned to fight afterwards. I want y'all to keep it after school was over. Okay, just keep that in mind. I'm just asking questions. Okay. Now the bathroom incident. All right. The bathroom incident. The jury also heard testimony of Caysen Allison's friend, Chris Biddle, and Allison's friend who was in the bathroom the day of the stab. This is what the jury heard. Okay. This is what the jury heard. This is the evidence presented to them, and this person was cross-examined. There was a plan for Caysen Allison and Joe Ramirez to fight. So the plan was to fight. All right. In anticipation of that fight, apparently Caysen had his knife with him. But it wasn't supposed to happen in the school. Okay. Chris Biddle, who again is Caysen Allison's friend, said they were surprised to run into Ramirez and his friends in the bathroom. Listen to the testimony. Chris Biddle said he and Caysen Allison tried to leave after using the restroom, but Ramirez and his 4 friends. Ramirez and his 4 friends. So you saying it was Ramirez plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I didn't hear that on those TikTok videos. I thought it was a 2-on-2. So you telling me so the jury heard that it was Chris Biddle, who was an eyewitness, said that Caysen Allison and he went into the bathroom. They were surprised. And it was Jose Ramirez and his 4 homeboys in the bathroom. Well, very interesting. Does that change anything for you all? So it's not a 2-on-2. It's a 5-on-2. Now, then according to Chris Biddle, Jose Ramirez punched Caysen. So you mean the victim then took off? Somebody typed took off. He took off on Caysen Allison? And when Chris Biddle tried to step in, he was hit by Josh Rios. This is the testimony that the jury heard. A guy who was with Jose Ramirez. So you got 5 in the bed, 5-on-2, and 2 of them take off on y'all. This is what you're saying? And the jury saw the cell phone video on the fight. So the jury, somebody whipped out a video and started taking this. I'd like to know who had the video. So the jury wasn't sitting there guessing about who threw the first punch. They knew they had the video evidence, the witness testimony showing the physical fight started when Jose Ramirez punched Allison. In other words, according to this evidence, Jose Ramirez, who Allison claimed had already pulled, well, not Allison, but he said his friends pulled a pistol, pulled a pew-pew on him, was the aggressor. Somebody typed the aggressor in the chat room and picked the fight with Caysen Allison. And when Caysen Allison and his friend Biddle were trying to leave the bathroom to avoid the confrontation, they stopped them. And see, this is the evidence the jury was presented with. You got 2 young men with a previous history of an ongoing confrontation where the jury had already heard the testimony. One young man allegedly pulled, not him, but I'm saying his friends pulled a pew-pew on him, okay? And then you have another young man having experienced that alleged gun incident, arming himself with a knife. And then when he unexpectedly was confronted in the high school bathroom, even after trying to leave, he got hit in the face, not pushed. He got socked. He got punched. And when his friend tried to break up the fight, he also was attacked. So look at that situation from that standpoint. You're in the bathroom. It's 2 versus 5. Nobody coming to save you. It's not a wide open space. We're not talking about a football field or a track field. We're not talking about a situation where you got 20 witnesses standing around. It's just you and your homeboy against 5 dudes, one of who possibly have already pulled a strap out on you. It doesn't mean Ramirez deserved to die. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, rest in peace, young man. It doesn't mean a knife was a proper response. That's not what I'm saying either. But legally, to the jury, it matters whether the deceased threw the first punch, whether the defendant was blocked from leaving, whether there were multiple people present, whether there was prior tension, whether they had allegedly been a gun involved, and whether the defendant claimed he was trying to protect himself, and whether or not his use of deadly force was reasonable at that moment. Somebody type at that moment. See, when he was trapped in the bathroom with 5 people trying to jump him and his homeboy, who had previously pulled a pew-pew on him in the recent past, that's what the jury had to sort out. Are these facts different than Carmelo Anthony in you all's opinion? I'm just asking. They seem different to me. Seem a little different to me. Okay? I'm just asking questions. Come on, y'all type coon, sell out. Let's get all them words in there. Somebody type coon in the chat room. Yeah. Somebody type bougie in the chat room. Boule. Let's get all that in there. I'm just giving you what the jury said. Okay, this is what the jury said. This is what they heard. Now, of course, the aftermath was brought up. The jury heard evidence that Caysen fled after the stabbing. He ran. The officers later found him at home. They heard that when the police arrived, Allison was in the bathroom talking on the phone, said, I did something at school, asking someone to come take him to Waco. He's trying to get up out of there. The deed was done, though. And they saw photos from inside the house, including white shoes had blood on them. They heard that he told the officers, I was just trying to protect myself. So there we go. Instead of shutting up, you talking. What's the first rule if you get arrested by the police? Shut your mouth. You should have shut up. Let's start with shutting up. Bottom line is he was talking. Okay. But, you know, he had basically admitted he did it. I just tried to, I was just trying to protect myself. And then he heard that the jury heard that he described the knife and told the detectives where they could find it. So he discarded the murder weapon after the incident. Okay. All right. And he told what a weapon was. Right. So that's something similar. You got a confession or at least an admission, like in the Carmelo Anthony case, and you got a murder weapon. Right. And witnesses. All right. And again, you have you got some terrible facts for Caysen Allison. These are horrible facts. But the jury still had to decide what crime the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt. And you only got 3 choices. And do these facts apply to these questions? That's the only thing we need to know. Okay? Do the facts apply? Do they prove up these elements? So let's go over it. Okay? Your choices are murder, manslaughter, criminal negligent, homicide. Under Texas Penal Code subsection 19.02b1, a person commits murder if he intentionally or knowingly causes the death of an individual. All right? Under subsection 19.02 b2, a person commits murder if he intends to cause serious bodily injury and commits an act clearly dangerous to human life that causes the death of an individual. So the state had 2 murder theories they could work with. First, the state could prove that Caysen Allison intentionally or knowingly caused Joe Ramirez's death. Second, the state could prove that Allison intended to cause serious bodily injury and then committed an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused Joe's death. That was relatively easy to do, wasn't it? Because Caysen Allison stabbed Joe Ramirez 4 times. Ain't no question in that. A knife is deadly force. Stabbing somebody multiple times is deadly force. So the argument isn't that Allison didn't use deadly force. He did. He had a deadly weapon and he used deadly force. And the real question is whether the state proved murder beyond a reasonable doubt after the jury considered the surrounding facts and the self-defense evidence. Somebody type pew pew in the chat room. And see, that's where the state has a problem, pew pew. A jury heard bad facts against Allison, pew pew. They heard that Madison Barnes testify that Allison said he wanted Joe Ramirez on life support. He wanted to stomp his head in. He wanted his jaw dangling from his face. That's what they testified, pew pew. He wanted him in the hospital. They also heard the Snapchat message where Allison said, we finna catch them tomorrow and I'm gonna send them to the hospital. And those statements are violent. That is clearly violent. I'm scared. That's what these kids are talking about. They're very damaging. They gave the state an argument for anger, motive, and intent to hurt Joe Ramirez. But those statements still matter because of what they didn't say. See, the jury heard that, right? What did they not say? They didn't say, I'm going to kill him. They didn't say, I'm going to send him to the morgue. They didn't say, I'm going to send him to the grave. He said he wanted to send him to the hospital. That supports an intent to hurt injure, or fight. It doesn't automatically prove a premeditated plan to kill, does it? And that distinction matters because the jury wasn't just deciding whether Allison stabbed Ramirez. The jury is deciding whether the state proved murder beyond a reasonable doubt. And murder is defined. It has elements. Just because you kill somebody, it doesn't rise to the legal definition of murder that can get you convicted. And when the jury looked at Allison's words, it could reasonably conclude, and I'm just saying a rational jury, I don't know what was going on in that room, but a rational jury could conclude that his words showed a plan to hurt Ramirez, but not a plan to murder him. Those statements are bad. But this was never going to be a capital murder case in the first place. They didn't even charge him with that. But a lot of you all confused premeditated, so I had to eliminate that. All right. Now that made saying that and getting that testimony in there, I'm sure it helped anger the jury, showed motive and intent to injure, but it didn't automatically satisfy the legal requirements of murder, or not at least the ones we're looking for. We're not trying to get capital murder. We're just trying to get murder, manslaughter, and negligent criminal homicide. But again, the prosecutor probably threw them in there to inflame the jury and at least make Allison look like a mean, bad guy, okay? But that's what we would call a red herring. Those are all red herrings. Now let's get down to the jury, what they really consider. Because see, the jury heard that this conflict didn't begin in a bathroom. It began earlier after prom night. This is what the jury heard. Probably sometime in April 2022. They heard that Joe Ramirez and his friends pulled a gun on Caysen Allison. Or at least that Caysen Allison believed they pulled a gun on him. Okay? That matters. Because see, under the law of self-defense, a person doesn't have to be perfectly right about every fact. A person can make a mistake. The question is whether the person's belief was reasonable under the circumstances at that moment. As you understand that? Does that narrow things down? So if Allison believed that Ramirez, as he was trapped in that bathroom, if Allison or Caysen Allison believed Ramirez and his friends who had already pulled a gun on him, then that belief changed the way the jury could evaluate everything that happened later. It gave the jury a reason to understand why Allison may have believed he needed to protect himself. It also gave the jury a reason to understand why he later asked a friend to bring a gun. That didn't make him innocent. And you should not ever bring weapons to school, but do we understand where the jury was coming from? Okay? See, but what that did was it placed the conduct in the context of fear, danger, and an escalating confrontation. Then the jury heard about the bathroom incident. Chris Biddle testified that there was a plan for Allison and Ramirez to fight after school or outside the school, but not inside the school. Biddle said that Allison and they were both surprised to run into Ramirez and his 4 homeboys in the restroom. Biddle said he and Allison, Caysen Allison, the white boy, somebody type white boy, tried to leave after using the restroom. This is what they testified to. This is the evidence that the jury heard. We went in there, we were surprised, we took a piss, tried to get out of there, and they wouldn't let us go. That's what the jury heard. What do you think the jury is thinking right now? Huh? If you're sitting there as a grown juror with common sense, who's the aggressor in this situation? Number one, right? Who's the person more likely to have a pew-pew on them? Number one. One of them is. Okay? So this is the testimony that was heard. This is the evidence presented at trial, not TikTok, not YouTube, not The View, none of that. Okay? They wouldn't let him leave. And then according to Chris Biddle, Ramirez punched Caysen in the face. Caysen Allison first. He hit him first. It wasn't a push. He punched him. And then when Biddle tried to step in, they said one of his homeboys hit me too. Josh Rios, his stepbrother, whatever, one of the people with him. And the jury saw that on the cell phone and they saw the video fight. So the jury wasn't guessing about who started. It's not just testimony they relying on. They saw a video of who was fighting. And see, that's the self-defense context. Let's analyze that. You got Allison and Biddle in the bathroom. You got 2 on 5. They're not in a wide open space. They're not in front of teachers. They're not surrounded by 20 adults who can break it up. And according to the testimony, they tried to leave and couldn't. Wouldn't allow to leave. Then Allison got punched in the face by Joe Ramirez, and then Biddle got hit in the face by his stepbrother Josh. You see? And keep in mind, Allison was fair to believe that one of these people was somebody that pulled a gun on him before. And those facts gave the jury a serious self-defense issue to consider. So when we look at the first murder theory, let's think about this. Intentional or knowing murder, the jury had a basis to reject that. The jury could say, yes, we believe Caysen used deadly force. He stabbed Joe Ramirez. Joe Ramirez died. But we're not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that this was intentional or knowing murder because Allison may have used deadly force while reasonably believing he needed to defend himself and his friend from the deadly force. So you got the self-defense argument. Yes, it was murder, but there's a defense to that. Even the use of deadly force. If you think the other person has deadly force, or you reasonably believe that the other person has deadly force. Okay, that doesn't mean that the jury fully accepted the self-defense. It didn't. Okay, Allison was convicted, but we got to listen. See, that self-defense evidence was strong enough to create reasonable doubt as to the murder charge. Now let's go to the manslaughter. That's the second murder theory. It also failed for a similar reason. The state had to prove that Allison intended to cause serious bodily injury and committed an act clearly dangerous to human life. Well, actually, that's the second shot at the murder. That's subsection 19.02. So we haven't even got the manslaughter yet. It's 2 ways they can prove murder. Okay, and so the first way we talked about, this is the second way. The second theory, it failed because, well, let's read the statute under subsection 19.02 B2. The state had to prove that Allison intended to cause serious bodily injury and then committed an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused death. Stabbing someone with a knife, that is clearly dangerous to human life. That's easy, okay? But the state still had to prove the required mental state. And the jury had to consider whether Allison used the knife because he intended to seriously bodily injury or whether he used a deadly knife because he reasonably believed deadly force was necessary under those circumstances because they were about to use it against him. And that's the key point. Deadly force isn't automatically murder if the jury believes the defendant reasonably believed deadly force was necessary to protect himself from deadly force. Somebody type 5 on 2 in the chat room. Somebody type pew pew in the chat room. The jury sitting there in that jury room could have believed Allison's intentional use of the knife and said, yeah, he did it, but still reject the murder because the self-defense evidence created reasonable doubt about the state's murder theory. Again, he didn't have to be perfectly correct. There could have been no gun in there at all, but if he thought it, if he had a reasonable belief to believe, right? If Allison believed Ramirez or any member of that group who had previously pulled a gun on him, if he was outnumbered 5-2, if he was blocked from leaving, if there was no help coming because he trapped in the bathroom, if Ramirez punched him first, if the other friend punched his friend, the jury could conclude that Allison believed deadly force was necessary to protect himself or his friend Chris Biddle. And the jury may have believed that the belief wasn't enough. The jury may have believed that belief was enough to complete the self-defense and defeat the murder, which they did. You see? Self-defense defeated that murder charge, even though there was a knife, because the jury probably believed, well, this guy was reasonable in thinking that they had a gun. Number one, they were 5 deep on 2. That could cause serious bodily injury. And there's evidence they were being attacked when they responded. On the other thing, there was a prior incident involving a gun, which is clearly a dangerous weapon. Is that clear to you all? Do you understand the difference between this case and Carmelo Anthony? I'm just asking, because some of y'all somebody type coon in the chat room. Let's get the coon word going. Coon, bougie, boule. Let's get all those words. Now, let's get out the way. Come on. Let's get that in there. For me explaining you what the jury did and why. Let's get that in. Okay? Now, let's talk about manslaughter. Under Texas Penal Code, subsection 19.04a, a person commits manslaughter if he recklessly causes the death of an individual. Drinking and driving, shooting firearms in the air, during the 4th of July, New Year's, come down and hit somebody. That's reckless. Okay? Under the Texas Penal Code, subsection 6.03, a person acts recklessly when he is aware of a substantial, unjustifiable, listen to that word, unjustifiable risk and consciously disregards that risk. Okay, that's how that's defined. Manslaughter doesn't require proof that Allison or Caysen intended to kill Joe Ramirez. You didn't have to intend to do it. But it does require proof that Allison knew his actions created a serious risk of death, and he ignored that risk anyway, and that's the key. And the state had to prove Allison was actually aware of that risk of death and consciously disregarded it, which would be easy to do because he stabbed him 4 times. Of course he disregarded that. We don't need to, we know he did it. We know. But here again, the self-defense evidence matter. If the jury believed Allison used deadly force because he thought deadly force was necessary to protect himself or his friend, if he was reasonable to believe that, then the state has a problem proving manslaughter. Why? Because from Caysen Allison's standpoint, the danger may not have looked imaginary or unjustified in that moment. See, we're not talking about a fictitious push and I might fall down a stadium stair. We talking about these people had pulled a gun on this boy before. They were actively boxing him upside his head and his friends, and they were 5 deep and they were 2 deep. You understand? The jury heard evidence that Joe and his homeboys had pulled a gun on him before at the prom after party. That's what the jury heard. Or at least Allison believed they had pulled a gun on him. And they heard that Allison and Biddle were outnumbered 5-2 in the bathroom. They heard this wasn't just talking and arguing or pushing. This was an active fight, punching and hitting. And the jury also heard testimony that Allison and Biddle tried to leave. They heard that Ramirez punched Allison first, making him the aggressor. So the victim was the aggressor. That was established. They heard that Biddle was punched when he tried to step in. His homeboy got punched. So the jury could look at those facts and say Allison used deadly force, but it was reasonable at the moment because, number one, it was 5-on-2, and number two, he could have reasonably believed they had a gun, which he had seen before and had been pulled on him. So the jury was not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that he consciously disregarded an unjustifiable risk of death. In other words, they're saying it was justifiable. The deadly force was justified to eliminate the deadly threat to his own life or the life of his friend. That's why manslaughter failed. Are y'all with me? It's not hard when you hear all the facts. Now, if you hear half the facts or a few of the facts on The View or somebody's podcast trying to get y'all ginned up and fired up and angry, it is what it is. But that's not what we're going to do here. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Let's go and move on. What was he convicted of? He was convicted of a lesser included charge, negligent, a criminal negligent homicide. That falls under the Texas Penal Code, subsection 1905. Criminal negligent homicide means a person causes the death of another by criminal negligence. Okay? Criminal negligence is different from recklessness. Recklessness means the person was aware of the risk and consciously disregarded it. This is a very nuanced difference. Criminal negligence means, listen very carefully. Criminal negligence means the person should have been aware of the risk, but fail to perceive it. That's ignorance. Someone who's negligent, criminally you're ignorant. Someone who's reckless, they know about it and they do it anyway. Okay, but the most important thing for you all to understand is that that's the middle ground the jury chose. And I want you to put yourself in the mind of this jury. You got a dead boy, a dead young man in the bathroom in your county. Something has to happen. I'm just welcome to tech. Somebody's going to jail, okay? Because this is Texas. You gonna go to jail, even if the law says we're supposed to let you go. That's in the back of their mind. They'll never admit it. I'm just saying, because you got a dead boy. Now, again, the jury never said that Caysen Allison was innocent. Shout out to Storyteller. The jury didn't say the stabbing was fully justified. The jury didn't say that Joe Ramirez deserved to die. The jury said that Allison caused Ramirez's death, but the state didn't prove murder and they didn't prove manslaughter beyond a reasonable doubt. Instead, the jury found that Allison should have perceived the deadly risk created by using that knife in the bathroom fight, but failed to perceive it. Now I'm gonna set that up for a minute, and we're gonna come back and visit that because I know there's some people in here who are real smart. And you saying, well, hold on a minute. I thought they said it was self-defense. Why he should have walked free. If it was self-defense, it was self-defense. Again, this is Texas. You're going to jail. All right. All right, but let me deal with that in detail in a minute. So again, this is where the verdict feels like a compromise than a clean legal conclusion. And shout out to the people contributing to the super chat. I'm glad y'all learning. I know it's angry people. You don't want to hear it, but I'm glad you're here. Okay, but let's talk about jury compromises. Okay, so if Caysen Allison reasonably believed Jose Ramirez or Ramirez's group had a gun, or that deadly force was about to be used against him or his friends, even if it was just a bunch of them beating him up and packing him out and stomping him on the ground, right? That's one thing. We can say we can argue that's deadly force, but certainly we can argue that having a gun pulled on you and somebody using it is also deadly force. That's easy, okay? All right, so again, if Caysen Allison reasonably believed Joe Ramirez and his homeboys had a gun, or that deadly force was about to be used against him and his friend, they was about to get packed out, then self-defense should have applied, right? And if self-defense applied, even with the use of deadly force, it should have applied all the way, right? I mean, think about that. Y'all said I was self-defense, so why am I being convicted of criminal negligent homicide? I should be acquitted. You telling me I only have a right to defend myself up to a point against a gun? They would have shot me, so I can't use that. I want you to think about it. It's hard, it's nuanced. This is advanced stuff. It's not for everybody. All right, we'll try to keep talking through it. Okay, but see, this is where the verdict feels more, again, that's why it makes the criminal negligent homicide verdict difficult. It feels like the jury believed enough of the self-defense evidence to reject the murder. They couldn't find that Allison committed intentional murder. Okay, well, they know he committed murder, but the self-defense is just kind of like, well, he was defending himself. Okay, they couldn't find that he acted with the kind of reckless disregard required for manslaughter, but at the same time, somebody died in the public in a school bathroom. Okay, and I think the jury felt, and somebody typed felt. Now, they usually don't talk about feelings, but again, this is why you don't want to be judged by 12. Okay, I felt like the jury felt they couldn't just let him walk out the courthouse without a punishment. And that's why I believe the lesser included charge mattered so much. Had the criminally negligent homicide, which is third on the list, not been on the table, there's a real argument that Allison may have walked out of that courthouse free. And see, the jury deliberated for 12 hours. That's a long time, okay, for a stabbing in the bathroom. And I'm just saying. And that tells me that they struggle with the case. It wasn't easy for them. It seems like they were trying to reconcile some competing truths or some competing people. On one hand, you got Caysen Allison. He had a serious self-defense argument. This boy thought they was about to shoot him or his friend, or at least pack him out. On the other hand, Joe Ramirez is dead. And the jury likely felt like they had to hold Caysen Allison responsible in some kind of way. So they landed on criminal negligent homicide. In plain English, they said, they appear to have said, we don't believe this was murder. We don't believe this boy should go to jail for 99 years. Okay, we don't believe this was manslaughter. We don't believe that. We do believe Allison had a reason to fear for himself. We do believe Caysen he was justified in fearing for himself and his friend, but we also believe we shouldn't walk away completely free after using a knife in the damn school bathroom fight that ended in a death. And see, this is where the racism comes in. Come on, somebody type racism. This is where the racism comes in. So remember earlier I told you about the makeup of the county? And I don't know what the jury pool had, okay? But imagine if you're a white mother or father and you can probably identify with Caysen Allison. In your mind, come on, let's talk about the racism. This is where the racism comes in. This is where the racial teams start teaming up. You got some black folks and some Hispanic folks in there, and some white folks in the jury. I don't know what the jury was made up of. I don't know. But I could imagine they looked from, let's assume the white people were like, man, these Mexicans was picking on this white boy. They pulled a gun on him. He would have been justified in getting the gun himself, but he didn't. He got a knife. He literally brought a knife to a gunfight. Literally. And he, just by the skin of his teeth, he came out on top. Think about that. Okay? Think about that. And they like, nah, we're not going to convict him of murder, and we're not even going to convict him of manslaughter. We are not doing that. But then on the flip side, you got other people saying, and I'm just playing the racial game because that's what we like to play on the internet, right? We like to play it in real life. So let's say you have some Hispanics in there in the jury room, in the deliberating room, maybe a black person. They like, nah, we ain't gonna let that white boy go free. Nah, he killed somebody. Well, we think it's murder. Nah, it ain't gonna be murder. We not gonna let you convict this white boy, somebody type white. We ain't gonna let you convict him of murder. This is the racism. This is where the racism come in. This is when the team sports come in. And they like, look, we've been in here 11 and a half hours, man. That's a long time. They're going back and forth. It's not gonna be murder. We're not gonna let you do him like that. It's not even gonna be manslaughter. We'll give you criminal negligent homicide. So they worked. But how can we do criminal negligent homicide? Either it's self-defense, or how can y'all say it's self-defense and then still convict him of criminal negligent homicide? That don't make sense. Well, that's what you're gonna get. We ain't gonna let this white boy go free. Somebody type white boy in the chat room. That's probably how it went. Okay, that's literally how it went. You got a bunch of people who don't know each other, who've been sitting in the jury pool eating lunch for several days, maybe weeks at that point, and that's how it went down. And so they landed at criminally negligent homicide. And in plain English, like I said, we don't believe this was murder. We don't think it was manslaughter, but we're not gonna let this white boy go free after he didn't stab somebody to death in the goddamn school bathroom. And then here's where it got nasty, okay? The judge came in at the sentencing. Now, in the state of Texas, you could be sentenced by the judge or the jury, okay? The judge came in at sentencing. Now, for y'all who don't know, Carmelo Anthony was sentenced by the jury. The judge sentenced this guy in this case, Caysen. The judge, because the conviction was criminally negligent homicide, the normal punishment range is very low. Okay, I want to shout out to Vibes 6502. Listen now, under Texas law, criminally negligent homicide is a state jail felony. He wouldn't even went to TDC. He wouldn't even be out there. Ordinarily, that means that he's confined in state jail. He'd be right there in his hometown. He'd be there for 180 days and not more than 2 years. Think about that. The jury convicted him of criminally negligent homicide, which means 6 months to 2 years, plus a possible fine of $10,000. Possible. That's what Caysen Allison was going to get. Again, I want you to put yourself in the mind of the jury. This boy had a gun pulled on him. He was getting jumped in the bathroom by 5 people, and so the jury heard that. Okay? They lucky the boy even got found guilty of that. Because at the point where somebody pull a gun on you and then they jump you and they're the aggressors, he might have walked out of there free. But nevertheless, he got criminal negligent homicide. But the max you can get on that is 2 years plus 10,000. But once the deadly weapon finding was applied, in other words, the judge came in and said, "Oh no, you killed somebody in the bathroom, homeboy, white boy or not." And I think the judge is white. I'm not sure, but the bottom line is, the judge gave him the maximum that he can get him. Think about that. Once the deadly weapon came in, the conviction was still criminal negligent homicide, but the punishment range was increased from the normal state jail range to a 3rd-degree felony, and that made it from 2 to 10 years. So because you use a deadly weapon, they found that a deadly weapon was involved. It went from 6 months to 2 years to 2 years to 10 years. And so the judge said, "Nah, I'm gonna give him the maximum sentence." You see what I'm saying? So to me, that looks like the judge was making a statement too. Even if the jury would not call this murder or manslaughter, the court wasn't going to treat a fatal stabbing inside a public school as a minor offense. So the jury reduced the offense, the deadly weapon finding, raised the punishment, and the judge gave him every day available under the enhancement range. Now, based on the facts, and I'm gonna say this again, okay? Based on the facts and what I see, the jury, I'm surprised I'm surprised Caysen Allison didn't walk out acquitted, because in my opinion, he had a self-defense all the way. But, both the judge and the jury wanted to punish him. And in fact, I would say that they went all out. They went out their way to punish him. They literally fought about that in the jury room. And he got the maximum he could get. That's what I'm saying. Now, this case is reportedly on appeal, and the appellate court may look at it differently. But the appeal could raise some questions about the deadly weapon enhancement, the jury instructions, the insufficiency of evidence, or whether the verdict is legally consistent with the self-defense. How you gonna have a finding of self-defense and then convict this boy? That's what I'm trying to do. How can you say the deadly weapon was justified under the self-defense, but then convict him from negligent homicide, criminal negligent? That doesn't make sense to me. Either it is or it isn't. You can't split the baby, but they did. But I'll say this, if I'm looking at this from a defense lawyer standpoint, and as you all know, I absolutely detest the criminal practice of law. I practice 100% personal injury. That's what I want to do, and that's what I continue to do. Criminal stuff is not mine, but that's why I can give you a fair look at what happened, okay? Because I'm not a criminal defense lawyer. If I was a criminal defense lawyer, I'd say, "Oh, yeah, the jury got it right," or "The jury got it, he should have been acquitted." And if I was a prosecutor, I'd say, "No, they should have charged him with murder." I can just call it like I see it. And that's the freedom that I have. That's why I can speak to you all very truthfully about these cases. I'm not biased because it's not going to affect my practice anyway, okay? But again, if we're looking at this from the defendant's or defense counsel standpoint, I don't know that I would want a brand new trial, okay? I don't know if I want one. Because a new trial is a dangerous game. And it creates risk. It's the same game that Carmelo Anthony's people are playing. The state gets another chance. The state may try a case better. A new jury could convict, even give them something higher. And if there's a viable appellate issue, the safer target may be just say, "Well, we want to challenge this enhancement or some legal error tied to the punishment," rather than trying to open this case and retry the whole thing. That would be dangerous, because as bad as 10 years sound, killing somebody and only getting 10 years in prison, okay, he avoided murder, he avoided manslaughter. That's not a small thing. That's a win. The jury rejected the state's highest theories, the danger of going back, that's and getting another jury. It may not do the same thing. All right, but the bottom line is when you hear people say white boy got 10 years, black kid got 35 years, they're skipping the legal analysis. Caysen Allison wasn't convicted of murder. He wasn't convicted of manslaughter. He was convicted of criminally negligent homicide because the jury credited enough of the self-defense evidence to reject the higher offenses, while still holding him criminally responsible for Joe Ramirez's death. That's the point. Now, compare that to Carmelo Anthony. Are y'all still with me? Let's compare that to Carmelo Anthony's case, because this was where the two cases separate completely. People want to say Caysen Allison stabbed somebody. He white. He got 10 years. Carmelo Anthony should be able to stab somebody and only get 10 years. That's what they're saying. Okay? So you all are saying it's only a race difference. But see, when you actually look at the facts and the law, these cases are not the same. In Caysen Allison's case, the jury heard evidence of a prior conflict. They heard about a prom night after party. They heard about testimony that Joe Ramirez and his friends, or one of them, or whoever, pulled a gun out on Caysen and he believed the gun was pulled on him. They heard that Allison and his homeboy Chris Biddle, they were closed off in the school bathroom, and Ramirez and his 4 other friends came in there and start punching on him. That's what their jury heard. They heard Ramirez and his friends would not let him leave. They heard that Ramirez punched Allison first. They heard that Biddle was hit when he tried to step in and break it up, I guess. So the self-defense argument in the Allison had actually a foundation. You got a prior gun threat. You got enclosed bathroom. You outnumbered. You attempted to leave. You got hit with the first punch and the defense of another person. And that's not what happened in the Carmelo Anthony case, is it? Is that what happened? Do you all think these facts are different? Are y'all understand? Is it different? Huh? Or in your mind, is it still the same? Is it still just white and black? I'm trying to understand where you all are coming from. I think it's different. You let me know. But let me break it down even further for you. See, that's not what happened in Carmelo Anthony's case. Austin Metcalf didn't pull a gun on Carmelo, did he? There was no testimony that Austin Metcalf had ever pulled a gun on him before. There was no evidence that Austin and Carmelo even knew each other before that day. There's no prior feud. There's no prom night after party. There's no earlier gun threat. You understand? There was no reason for Carmelo to believe that Austin Metcalf had a gun or a knife on him. There was no reason for him to believe that, according to the jury. Wasn't reasonable. And see, there was no reason to believe that Austin was coming back with deadly force. That's a huge difference. And there's also a major difference in the location circumstance. Think about that. Caysen Allison was in the bathroom. The bathroom is closed off. It's enclosed. It's tight. It isn't wide open space with no adults or supervision to break up a fight or come to anybody's aid. And according to the testimony, Allison and Biddle were outnumbered 5-2, blocked from leaving. In Carmelo Anthony's case, the testimony was that they were at a track meet outside in a stadium environment under a tent during a rain delay. And Carmelo was asked to leave. They wasn't trying to hold him there. That's not the testimony. We know that by the fact that he could have left. He could have left any time. They asked him to leave. We know by the fact that when he ran up out of there after he did the stay, he ran up the stairs and down the stairs. This wasn't a closed-off bathroom with nobody around. There were dozens and dozens of people around. Many of them later came to testify as to what they saw. And that matters because self-defense depends on what a reasonable person would believe was immediately necessary under the circumstances at that moment. And even the physical contact is different. The jury heard testimony that Caysen got socked up. first. And his homeboy got socked up, and there was 5 people in there. There was a 5-on-2. These weren't words. This wasn't just a shove. It wasn't this. It was punching and hitting inside a closed bathroom. In Carmelo Anthony case, the testimony was Austin Metcalf pushed to shove Carmelo after Carmelo was told to leave the tent. There was no testimony that Austin punched Carmelo. There was no testimony that Austin's friend punched Carmelo. There was no testimony that it started punching on Carmelo. There was no testimony that Austin or anybody with Austin used or displayed a firearm or any other sort of weapon. That's the legal difference. You don't have to like it. We talk about the evidence that was presented at trial. Deadly force isn't justified just because somebody pushes you. No reasonable person gets shoved and responds by pulling a knife and stabbing somebody in the chest, unless there's some additional facts that makes deadly force immediately necessary, like they themselves had a knife or a gun or some other deadly weapon. In Allison's case, the jury had those additional facts to consider. The prom-night gun incident. Somebody pulled a gun on him. The belief that Ramirez and his friends were dangerous and strapped. Had a reputation for fighting. Had a reputation for jumping people that he knew about. They were stuck in the bathroom with these dudes. They were outnumbered. They were blocked from leaving. What would you do? They got hit. They got punched. What you do after you get punched? I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. But in Carmelo Anthony's case, those facts weren't there. And that's why the self-defense analysis is different. And Allison, the jury could say, we understand why he believed dangerous force may have been necessary. They apparently believed he had a valid self-defense claim, which means he should have walked free, in my opinion. Nevertheless, they locked him up anyway, because this is Texas. We put people in jail. The jury felt like he went too far, even though he was protecting himself against a dangerous weapon. Damn. Even though he was outnumbered 5-2, he still went to prison. In Carmelo Anthony's case, the state's argument was that Anthony was under another team's tent, was told to leave, refused to leave, opened or reached into his bag and said something like, touch me and see what happens. Witnesses testified that after Metcalf pushed him, Anthony pulled a knife and stabbed him in the chest. That's why the prosecutors argued you don't get to meet a shove with a stab, especially if you provoke the shove. Reporting also stated that witnesses described Anthony's reaching into the bag and saying, touch me and see what happens before the fatal stabbing. So the difference isn't just race, family. Are y'all getting that yet? Or y'all still believe it's just race? See, the difference is the evidence that was presented to the jury. Not what you all say on TikTok, not what your favorite podcaster says. What presented to the jury. In the Allison case, and we talk about, y'all asked me for this. Y'all kept saying, what about Caysen Allison? Y'all kept at, here you go. In the Caysen Allison case, the jury heard evidence in support of the serious self-defense injury or issue, even though the jury didn't fully acquit him. In Carmelo Anthony, the jury heard evidence that made self-defense very hard to accept because there's no prior gun threat, no prior relationship, no enclosed bathroom, no first punch, no being punched on by a bunch of people, no weapon displayed by Austin Metcalf, and no reasonable basis to believe force was immediately necessary. This is what the jury found. And see, that's why comparing the sentences without comparing the facts is misleading. Y'all have been misled, and I am not going to lie to you. I will not lie to you. Not going to do it. I don't like you all enough to lie to you. I'd have to like you and not want to hurt your feelings to lie to you or want something from it. I don't want nothing from you. Just want you to know. So again, when people say the white kid got 10 years and the black kid got 35 years, they're skipping the most important part. That the Allison jury was dealing with a bathroom fight after a prior alleged gun incident, and the first punch, and the Anthony jury was dealing with a track meet in a tent confrontation where the victim was unarmed and there was no prior history, no gun, no multiple punches, no group attack, no reasonable need for deadly force. That's not the same case, is it? Well, we're going to take the time to read some of these super chats, and we'll talk about what you guys are saying here. Shout out to Curtis Smith. Basic common sense is advanced and uncommon. Thank you so much. Daniel Moore said, Umar, a.k.a. Jermaine, is going to be quite quiet in a few years, himself a fraud. Let me see here. Big J, to piggyback off my last comment. Let me see, where's your first comment? Did I miss one? Oh, Lord, hold on a minute. Shout out to everybody. Tommy, David, Verbal, thank you so much for your membership. Thank you so much. And also Lush, I can't say that. I can't. Lush 115. Thank you so much. Welcome to the membership, baby. 99 Problem Brilliant. That was the first time I've ever seen someone educate the master troll. Thank you so much, family. He's not a Mexican. Yeah, I'm not a Mexican. I'm not a Mexican. My Spanish is not good enough to be a Mexican. Okay, I know you all want me to try to other me so you can then disregard what I say. But you can't. I'm one of you all. And that's just how it's going to be. And I know that makes you mad, but it is what it is. And you don't have to like it. Okay, so this is your first question. Big J said, I don't disagree with you as far as the law goes, because as a lawyer, you're more knowledgeable than I am in the field. I only disagree with the judge and the prosecution and sentencing. Carmelo should have gotten manslaughter. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, it was in the range. If I was on the jury, I'd have voted for manslaughter if I was on the jury. Okay? He had a range, murder or manslaughter. I would have voted for manslaughter. But again, this is the importance of having your team, your racial team, okay? Because we talked about that. If you had some 3 black jurors in there, they might have held out like, yeah, we know he killed the boy and he need to be punished, but we'll sit here and we'll do manslaughter. But see, here's the thing, brother. Think about this. There's no what if he had upcharged him? You know, and I'd have to talk to some criminal lawyers about that. He could have got manslaughter and still got some more years put on top of it. You see, just like what happened in the Caysen case. You never know. All right? You never really know. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let's go on to the next one. Basic common sense is advanced and uncommon. Thank you so much. Umar, I read this one already. Shout out to Daniel Moore. Big J. Okay, so listen. To piggyback off the last question, I still believe he got the charge and harsher sentences because he was black. So much evidence was left out, which is why they rushed to it. Too many flat. But see, here's the problem. The only evidence, just because something is said, it has to be vetted. You can't just say something and think that's automatically going to be admitted in the court. Otherwise, anybody could come up and say anything. Look at all those years we had to deal with those false claims being made about what this man allegedly did 60 years ago to this woman. You see, is that what we want to continue have? Is that what we want? People just can come in and make up anything. We have to vet the facts. We have to screen them. We have to have evidentiary rules. Otherwise, you end up with a problem. Anybody could just come in and say anything, and the next thing you know, people are going to jail and losing their fortunes just on the strength of what somebody said, and it could get really bad. So that's why we do that. That's why we vet the information. That's why we have the rules of evidence. But thank you so much. Let's go on to Weather Mark Outdoors. I'm pretty sure Allison brandished the knife before stabbing Ramirez, not hiding and ambushing Ramirez he saw and still proceeded to punch him. I'm pretty sure Allison, I don't know. I think according to the witnesses, and I'm talking about Brittle, he got punched And then he pulled his knife out and he stabbed him in the ribs, punched him in the lung, and sliced him across the chest. That's what the evidence shows. I don't know what happened. You can speculate, but this is what the testimony said. And I'm going to limit my diagnosis and my assessment to what the jury heard, because my only question is whether a rational jury could come to this conclusion. And if we limit ourselves to that, then we throw out all the sensationalism. All right. And then we begin to see the consistency in the judicial system. I'm not going to sit here and second guess the jury unless there's some overt reason for racial bias. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it, because you'll stress yourself out doing this. Too many cases going on around America, and you just stress yourself out. Sit on jury duty and you'll see what I mean. You explained to the Corley brother, thank you. Can't sideway eye. They can't sideway eye. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. My man, Fuquan DTM, thank you for the $10 super sticker. Also, please do a show comparing the Carmelo Anthony versus Michael Drazier case. What is Michael Drazier? What is that? Is that another? Why y'all keep asking me through these cases? I done told y'all 100 times, I don't want to do criminal law. I want to practice personal injury. I want y'all to leave me alone. I know, I get it. Y'all finally found a lawyer to tell you the truth. It's like when you find a mechanic that actually fixes your car and charges you a fair price. Y'all just keep going back to him. When you can finally find a barber that can give you that good line, you know what I'm saying? That's what y'all did. Don't abuse me. I'm not gonna have y'all out here abusing me. Why don't y'all go somewhere? Where's the lead attorney at? Somebody type lead attorney. Tell him to do some of this. Okay, y'all need to leave me alone. I want to talk about history. I've been meaning to talk about the World Cup. I want to talk about some stuff like that, fun stuff. I can crack jokes, be funny. Can't really crack jokes with this stuff because kids are dying. So it's not fun. I'm not enjoying this. I'm just doing this because y'all keep harassing me. Okay, what's the Drazier? Who is that? Carmelo Anthony versus the Michael Drazier Drake. I don't know about this case. The case years after reviewing, Willie D totally contradicted after reviewing the Drazier. I don't know that case. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and read on the next super chat. Shout out to my man Mark the Freelance. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you for that. Who else we got in here? How do you say the devil is in the detail in legalese? Lots of love from Cali. How do I say the devil? Damn. Let me see. How? I would say in the course of your review, of any contract or agreement engaged in between you and other sophisticated parties, it would be wise to partake in the individualization and analysis of the separate, segregated parts, which are oftentimes or possibly overlooked and regarded because those can be the most pertinent, important, and persuasive sections, and bring forth the greatest requirement for analysis in the event this matter ends in litigation or conflict. Something like that. I would have to say it like that, but that's pretty much what I would go with. Shout out to you, Charlie. Why don't ask me no tough questions. I'm tired. I've been here for 2-3 hours. I'm gonna send you a bill. You're gonna get a bill. Wherever, I'm gonna find your email and send you a bill for that. But anyway, thank you, Challenger. Also, let me see here. Elegant Bird. Keep educating these folks, Mr. Red. Mr. Red, that's right. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, baby. Fuquan, thank you again, bro. Always good to see you. Thank you for correcting me. Great insight, assessment. Thank you, Weathermark. Appreciate you. And who else we have in here? Reading the New York Post today, they were showing images of teens dancing with knives in support of Carmelo. How would this affect this appeal? I mean, no, all this sensationalism. I mean, these people want Americans to fight it out. They want to be able to put cameras on it. They want conflict. You see, and look, as Americans, you have to understand that there, as I said, there are a lot of people who don't like us, both foreign and domestic. And when you get to the point where you get sophisticated enough and you realize that this is the only place we have to go, nobody else wants us. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you all have figured out that they don't want to. They like to come over here and, take over our fast food restaurants, according to these Europeans who've been hanging out here for the World Cup. But we have to be intelligent, and we have to not allow people, outside forces, inside forces, to cause us to have this unnecessary conflict, because they're just doing it for clicks and views, and they get paid off of it, and we can't allow that. That's my Cash App on the bottom. Anybody else who wants to contribute to the Super Chat, the Cash App, the PayPal, that's fine. You don't owe me anything. Let me start off by saying this. I enjoy doing this, but if you learn something, I should earn something. But again, you don't owe me anything. Thank you so much for your time and participation. But let me say it like this. Let me close with this, because this part a lot of y'all don't want to hear. Okay. If Austin Metcalf was black, most of y'all wouldn't still be talking about this. If this had been a black on black violence, right? This case would have disappeared in a day. Okay. And that outrage isn't really about justice. It's about race. It's about spectacle and people using dead children to score points in America's racial combat. Now, some of your arena, I should say, but some of you all don't believe me. You don't believe I'm telling you the truth. You think, oh, no, this is a big deal. No, it's not. It's not a big deal. Y'all don't care. Let me show you how I know you don't care. I want you to listen to this. Why are we not talking about this? Listen to this. Let's go through it.
This was supposed to be a joyous time. Neighbors say many people had gathered to celebrate Juneteenth when things took a violent turn. Surveillance video capturing what appears to be a barrage of gunfire. Shortly after, you see people running for cover. Chicago police were called to 95th and Princeton after a mass shooting around 11.
Somebody type mass shooting in the chat room. Mass shooting. How many people were shot?
Friday night in the city's Princeton Park neighborhood. At least 13 people were injured.
244 West 95th Street. I need crowd control.
Chicago police say a red SUV pulled up to a large crowd. Investigators say 2 suspects began shooting from inside the car.
39 people were shot in Chicago. 8 of them died all at once. This is what we're dealing with.
Before taking off.
There's approximately 25 shell casings, both rifle and pistol rounds, from 243 West 95th all the way to the end of the block on Princeton.
The victims' ages range from 17 to 47 years old.
Black Lives Matter.
Killed this weekend in Chicago, okay? On Juneteenth. The Juneteenth weekend, the Juneteenth weekend where we're supposed to be celebrating us. Yeah, yeah.
Type Black Lives Matter in the chat room.
48 people shot, 8 killed. How y'all expect other races to give a fuck about us if this is what we
family friendly
continue to do to us? Ain't nobody mad, ain't no outrage, ain't nobody making no videos about it. It's just like normal behavior, okay? But I've seen 1,700 posts and reposts about Carmelo getting a new
trial,
defense team or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Make it make sense. Y'all don't give a fuck about y'all, okay? Stop screaming that shit, okay? Black people do not care about black.
Princeton Park neighborhood, Juneteenth, around 11. A 32-year-old woman was shot twice in the back. A 44-year-old man was grazed in the back 4 times. A 17-year-old boy suffered a gunshot wound to the thigh. A 22-year-old woman suffered a gunshot wound to the thigh. A 26-year-old suffered gunshot wounds to the body. A 30-year-old man suffered gunshot wounds to the body. A 32-year-old man suffered gunshot wounds to the back. A 32-year-old man suffered a gunshot wound to the head. A 36-year-old woman suffered gunshot wounds to the body. A 38-year-old woman suffered graze wounds to the body. 47-year-old man suffered a gunshot wound to the knee. And an unknown age suffered gunshot wounds to the body.
Yeah.
A red SUV pulled up alongside a large crowd, and 2 people inside the vehicle fired shots before fleeing the scenes.
2 people. Black Lives Matter.
Austin Metcalf situation. You know, stuff happens, but you know, over this Juneteenth weekend where we commemorate the release of the final enslaved people out of Galveston, Texas, something happened in Chicago on the South Side that nobody seems to be talking about for whatever reason. Yeah, that's right. A mass shooting took place over Juneteenth weekend. But I guess everybody been too caught up talking about this Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf situation, a situation between 2 teenage boys, and that y'all done put the race narrative on. Y'all done straight up ignore the fact that some niggas in the hood,
family friendly, sir. Watch the N-word.
in the south side of Chicago, pulled up, did a drive-by with them switches, let that thing ring, rah, let the whole clip loose, 100 cases on the ground. They found 100 rounds on the ground after 12 people got hit in the hood, in a black neighborhood in Chicago, a liberal city with that black mayor, and I don't hear no fuss about it. I don't see nobody on TikTok making dissertations. Of course, everybody talking about the Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf situation, because it's going to make you some money on TikTok, real talk. But it's like, if a white person do something to a black person, or even if it just got anything to do with white and black, y'all niggas will get out here.
Watch the N-word, sir. I'm trying to let you speak.
And just make think piece after think piece after think piece. But when them little niggas walking around with
the N-word
guns, and they pull up.
Y'all get the point, right? You see where I'm going with this? Got a mass killing in Chicago, and a boy gets 35 years in prison for stabbing somebody. That's not even that sensational. So what is it? Okay, and keep in mind, this happened during Juneteenth, holiday weekend in Chicago. All right, and let's run the fact. 8 people killed, 39 black people injured. Mass killing from 14 to 70. Meemaw got shot. Okay, happened in Princeton Park. You understand what I'm saying? And we still talking about Carmelo Anthony. I mean, it's cool. We got black community traumatized, children losing their parents, mothers losing their children, families destroyed. But, you know, we talking about Carmelo Anthony. And that tells me something. And I want you all to listen very carefully to me. And I know I'm a coon today, and I'm a house Negro, and I'm a boule and all that. I know, because I'm just telling you the truth. I'm not pushing the narrative. It tells me something. It tells me that a lot of people don't really care. A lot of black people don't really care about black people being murdered. Tell the truth. Y'all don't. You care about whether black people can be used politically. They care about whether the victim and the defendant fit the narrative. They care about whether the facts allow them to say, see, black people are always the victims, and America's always the villain. It's not all of America, just white America. I'm just saying, look, there's enough dirt to go around. I know we have a history. I get it. We've been here 500 years, and it transcends that. But when black people are murdered by other black people, okay, the story becomes very inconvenient. It doesn't help the narrative. It doesn't help fundraising. It doesn't help the political movement, okay? It forces a conversation about fathers and households and good parenting and mothers instilling principles into their children and discipline and schools and gangs and guns and degeneracy and values and parenting and local politics and prosecution and policing and community standards. And a lot of people don't want that conversation because there's no money in that. There's no applause in that. There's no viral clips in that. There's no easy villain in that. If your position is that Black life matters, or Black lives matter when it's convenient, okay? Black life has to matter when the person who took that life isn't white or Hispanic or Asian or Arab or whatever. Black life has to matter when there's no clean political enemy. Black life has to matter when there's no clean racial enemy or opponent. Black life has to matter when the murder happened in Chicago along with Texas. Because see, black life has to matter when the death doesn't give you a simple talking point about racism. If black life only matters when a white person takes it, then black life doesn't really matter to you, does it? What matters is white guilt. What matters is leverage. Political leverage matters to you. Media attention matters to you. But black life doesn't matter to you. That's not love, that's exploitation. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that American justice system has always been fair to black people. I'm not saying that, it hasn't. And I'm not saying racism doesn't exist in policing and prosecution and sentencing or jury decision making. I'm not saying that. It does. But being a victim has just become too convenient and too profitable for too many people. It allows people to explain away all of their bad decisions, every destructive behavior, every broken household, every criminal act, every missed opportunity. It's somebody else's fault. I mean, when I say victimhood, okay, makes people lazy, I'm not talking about work ethic. Black people work hard. You know, black people built this country. We still working hard. I'm not talking about laziness like that. I'm talking about accountability. I'm talking about laziness and self-correction. I'm talking about laziness when it comes to discipline, laziness and personal responsibility. And we weren't always like that. I'm talking about laziness and family responsibility, laziness and expectation that we owe something to ourselves, our children, and our communities. Because if everything is oppression, then there's nothing that's your fault. If every bad outcome is racism, then you never have to ask, what did I do wrong? If every failure is the system didn't do me right, then you never have to change your behavior, do you? And that's not liberation. That's bondage with better language. We can fight racism and still tell the truth about ourselves, can't we? We can challenge the justice system and still condemn black on black murder, can't we? We can criticize unfair sentencing and still say Carmelo Anthony was responsible for his conduct. We can demand equal treatment and still demand accountability from those within our own community. I think that's fair. And those things aren't contradictions. That's just maturity. So don't tell me this is all about justice if you can ignore 39 people getting shot, 9 people dying in Chicago, but then obsess about Carmelo Anthony. Don't tell me this is about black life, because you would be a liar. And I don't like liars. Don't tell me this is about racism. And we've been silent about communities destroying ourselves from within. The truth is, Black Lives Matters only when white people take it. Black Lives Matters only when police take it. Black Lives Matters when prosecutors devalue it. But Black Life also should matter when black people take it. Black Lives Matters in Chicago. Black Lives Matters in South Dallas. Black Lives Matters in Houston. Black Lives Matters in Memphis, in Baltimore. See, black life should matter even though there's no camera and no protest and no national show, no celebrity posts and no political benefit. That's the standard. And if Austin Metcalf was black, most of y'all wouldn't even know his name. And the fact that y'all are still talking about this while black bodies are dropping in Chicago and all across America tells me exactly what you're really about. Now, let me dig a little deeper. People say baseball is America's national pastime. No, it's not. Racism is America's national pastime. All of y'all in here, black, white, Hispanic, everybody. Race competition in that's America's national pastime. Racial scoreboard keeping is America's national pastime. This country has always turned race into a game, and every major tragedy gets pulled back into that arena. That's what's happening with Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf and Caysen Allison. And see, the truth is, most people don't really care about Carmelo. You don't care about none of this. You don't care about Austin Metcalf. This has become a national obsession because one was black and the other was white. That's it. Real human suffering got turned into a scoreboard. One side sees Carmelo and says, that's our player. That's our guy. And the other side sees Austin and says, that's our player. And everybody runs into their side and puts their team colors on and start yelling at the referee. That's what you're doing. It's not just white people. This is everybody. Black people play the race game. White people play the race game. Hispanics, Asians, liberals play it. Conservatives play it. Immigrants come over here and get drafted to one side or the other. Everybody's eventually learns the race arena when they come to the United States. And they got to pick a side. And if you don't, somebody will pick one for you. And that's why this case is getting so much attention, where there's so many more egregious things going on in the world. It wasn't because people care about criminal law. Y'all don't give a damn. Y'all just sat here for 3 hours to hear what I was going to conclude. So y'all can go in my section, my comments section, or go to your little corner of YouTube and talk shit. Excuse my language. That's it. You know why you're here. You don't care about jury instructions. Hell, most lawyers don't care about jury instructions. This is one of the most boring broadcasts I've ever done, but you're here because you are here for the racial arena. You don't care about self-defense. I guess it's nice to know. Okay? You don't. See, this case and ones like it lets people keep playing the race game. Let's keep it 100. And the game has rules. If a white person kills a black person, one side scores a point. If a black person kills a white person and gets punished harsher, the other side says the system is racist. If a black person kills another black person, the scoreboard gets complicated. So the story usually just disappears. We can't put that up there. Flag on the plate. But if black and white are involved, now it becomes national news. And that's why Black death in places like Chicago doesn't get the same energy. It forces a conversation about family structure and discipline and gangs and schools and poverty and personal responsibility. You know, none of that, there's nothing sexy about that. And see, that's not a conversation people want. It doesn't give them that same political advantage. So those deaths get mentioned, mourned briefly, and forgotten. White people play the game too. A lot of them don't talk every day about white children being abused, or white boys being destroyed by drugs, or white men killing themselves, or violence inside white homes, or sexual violence. They don't. But when a black person harms a white person, suddenly they care. We care about white lives. Somebody type white lives matter in the chat room. White lives matter. Let's get that in there tonight. But they care because now it fits the racial scoreboard. So let's just have an honest conversation. Let's stop pretending one side is pure. Because both sides use dead bodies as evidence in the race trial. They're always trying to win. And that's why people stop caring about right and wrong. That's why black people don't. You care about the scoreboard. That's why you see all these horrible things, whether we talk about George Floyd, your team won. Woo! And you see is people using Austin Metcalf, using AI like they're peeing on his grave. That's the racial scoreboard. Woo, we won. That's what you're doing. And it's despicable. I didn't like it with George Floyd, and I don't like it with Austin Metcalf. Y'all care about who went viral. They care about who exposed the other side's hypocrisy. But nobody stops long enough to say, a young man is dead. Nobody stops long enough to say, another young man's life is destroyed. Nobody stops long enough to say, two families will never be the same. Once race becomes a sport, truth becomes optional. And once race becomes a game, dead people become symbols. And once race becomes entertainment, nobody has to be honest anymore. And that's where that's what we're seeing with Carmelo Anthony and Caysen Allison. Some people don't care whether he committed murder. They don't care. Y'all don't care. You only care that he was black or white. You don't even care whether Austin Metcalf was wrong or right. You don't care. You only care if he was white and killed by a black defendant. They don't care about the law. They don't care about the evidence, the verdict, or the sentence. They care about how the case can be used. And that is the ugly truth. That is the cold, hard truth. Race has always been a sport in America. Sometimes the arena was the auction block. Sometimes it was a plantation. Sometimes it was the courtroom or the boardroom. Sometimes it's a schoolhouse. Sometimes it's a boxing ring. Sometimes it's a football field. And now it's the internet. Different arena, same game. And the tragedy is that people are so addicted to the game, they don't want it to end. And they say they want healing, but they don't act like it. They say they want justice, but they only want the truth that helps their team. They say they want peace, but peace would take away the scoreboard and the context and the money and the attention. And that's why they won't let it go. And while everybody's playing the game, real people are dying. Real families are grieving. Real children are being buried. Real victims are gone forever. And none of that seems to matter as much as winning the next racial argument, does it? And that's why this case bothers me so much. That's why I don't like talking about it. Not because race can't be discussed. Race is always in the room in America, but if race is the only thing you can see, then you're blind to the facts. If the only question you ask is, did our team win? You're not seeking justice, you're watching the game. And I'm tired of the game. Now, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege. I'm not going to talk to you as a lawyer. I'm not going to even talk to you as a podcaster. I'm going to talk to you as a father. And as a father, I need to say this. With everything I've said about these cases, the legal analysis, the race discussion, the media coverage, the verdict, the sentence, I need people to understand something. I truly did not want to get involved in this case. For the year and a half, I had nothing to say about it. When it first happened, you can check my social media. I wasn't trying to make any content about Austin Metcalf or Carmelo Anthony. I don't follow the algorithm. I wasn't trying to use this for clicks. The only reason I'm talking about it now is because the conversation kept coming back to me after my appearances started with Willie D's broadcast. Shout out to my good friend, Willie D. But if being honest, this case is painful. And right now, I'm not talking to you as a lawyer. I'm talking to you as a dad. The only thing this whole situation has really done for me is make me hug my children tighter. Now, the other day, I was sitting at my desk when my son was leaving the house. And at first, I didn't really look up. and I was working, handling some business, doing what parents do. But before he left, something hit me. I stopped. I stopped him. Strange. Got up, gave him a couple of hugs. You know, not a quick grown son hug, but I just hugged him like he was still my little boy. And I hugged him like there was a chance I might never see him again. Then I watched him walk into his car and head off to his college class. And I thought, I can't imagine getting a phone call that he's not coming back. I can't imagine what Austin Metcalf's father feels. I can't imagine what Jose Ramirez's father feels. Nobody sends their child to school or a track meet and expects to have to come identify a body later on. Nobody sends their children to school expecting them to get stabbed to death. Nobody wakes up thinking that might be by the end of the day, their life is going to be changed forever. And I'll be honest, if it was my son and somebody took my son's life, prison wouldn't feel like enough punishment for them. A prison sentence wouldn't feel like enough punishment for them. A courtroom wouldn't feel like enough justice. You may not like what I'm saying, but I am a father. And I'm not going to pretend I'd be calm and philosophical about it. And that's why, in one very real sense, Carmelo Anthony got off light, and so did Caysen Allison. Both of them boys are still alive. They can still breathe and eat and talk and grow older. Austin Metcalf and Joseph Ramirez, they can't. They received the ultimate punishment. Whatever you think their behavior was, they were punished. They don't get parole. They don't get an appeal. They don't get a second chance to rethink their action. They don't even get to go home. I'm not going to pretend that Carmelo Anthony's family is not suffering. Same goes for Caysen Allison's family. I'm sure they are. People grieve in different ways. Some people are making a big deal about the fact that they didn't go to the sentencing hearing. Maybe they just couldn't take it. Maybe they just didn't want to be there to see that. It's not the same as death. I'm not equating the two. Two boys go to prison, two boys go to the funeral home in the graveyard. But they're losing the son too, just in a different way. They're losing the son, and he's going behind those prison walls for years. Maybe 17 years, maybe 35 years. There's no guarantee he'll get parole. There's no guarantee the prison won't do him in. His parents will visit him, maybe. They may talk to him through the glass. They'll watch him grow up behind bars. They'll ask how he's doing. And he may say, I'm good. But there's more underneath that. They may see the tattoos appear. They may see his face. They may see how prison has hardened their little boy in ways that they can't control. That's a loss too. So when people turn into this racial game, a political game, a social media argument, they forget that parents on both sides have had their lives destroyed. One family or one set of families lost a son or sons to death. Another family lost a son to prison. Those aren't the same. They're both painful. And I wouldn't want to trade places with either one of them. I wouldn't want to be Austin Metcalf's father. I wouldn't want to be Carmelo Anthony's father. And I ask you all on my page to give them both grace. I know there's been harsh words passed and perhaps bad decisions, but I ask you all to give them grace. I wouldn't want to be Joe Ramirez's mother. I wouldn't want to be Caysen Anthony's parents. I wouldn't want to be any parent whose child is either dead or locked away because of one violent moment that can never be undone. Please give these people grace. Somebody type grace in the chat room. Hug your children. Look up when they walk into the room. Stop what you're doing. Pay attention to your children. Don't treat them like their presence is like it's guaranteed. Don't assume you'll always have another chance. The angel of death comes and visits of all, and sometimes we all have to deal with unfortune or misfortune. So don't assume the next goodbye is just another goodbye. See you later. And before we get lost in this racial combat arena, before we get lost in politics, before we get lost in who scored points and who won an argument, remember this: there are parents who would give anything to go back to that morning before it happened. And that's where I am as a father. And that's why this case hurts. God bless you all. This is Dennis Spurling, as I always said this time. I'm out.
Dennis Spurling Podcast. Hit the like button, subscribe.